Hello, everyone. It's Razor from the Horror Syndicate, and this is the Horror Syndicate Discourse, or as we call it, THS Discourse, because THS, the Horror Syndicate. Anyway, tonight we're going to be talking about one of my favorite movies of the '90s, possibly my favorite movie of the '90s. I do love Scream quite a bit, but Candyman is one that I overlooked for a long time. I saw it in the '90s, sometime around it came out, and I was like, I didn't really get into it because I was back big in the slasher craze back then, of course. But we're going to be talking about the 1992 Bernard Rose Candyman, and I'm very excited about it. I would like to mention that the Farewell to the Flesh sequel is actually worth watching. I'm writing an article about it now. Hello, and we'll we'll get into that. But first, the first thing I want to do is I got a letter from Tommy Jarvis in the mail today, so I'm going to read this aloud, and then I'll bring the guys in. All right. Dear Ray, I am writing this to inform you that I will be stepping down from my position as president of the Evil Dies Tonight movement. I've been thinking a lot about the last 40 years, and I'm starting to think that we've all got it all wrong. Annie was a total bitch to Lori. Linda was an airhead that said totally too many times. Bob was a pedo, and Lester wasn't a good boy. Maybe Michael was doing Haddonfield a favor? Question mark. Maybe Michael isn't the hero we deserve, but he's the the one we need. Anyway, as myself and old Huckleberry step down, my position will be filled in by Dangertainment founder Freddie Harris. You'll be in good hands. He knows kung fu. Kind regards, Tommy Doyle. And that was actually sent to me from this man, Seth T. Miller. He was kind enough to give me a copy of this because somehow he had two. And I opened the package, this and the letter fell out. And I thought he was quitting the Horror Syndicate because of the beginning. And I'm glad you didn't, because that would have like ruined my day. But it turned out to be a pretty a day brightener. So thank you. I appreciate it. It's going to be with my Halloween Kills copy forever now. So Seth, how you doing, man?
I'm doing all right.
Oh, there it goes. Okay, you ready to talk some Candyman?
Yeah.
All right. And I'll bring Nate in as well. Nathan Thomas Milliner. Nate. How are you doing? He's upright today.
I'm right behind you. Yeah. I'm not lounging.
Not lounging. So we're gonna talk first about a couple. It was a kind of a good news day today. We got a couple of, I think, good news announcements today. We could also start with talking about get your guys' reactions on Halloween Ends, going to be on Peacock and the theater. That worked out for us because we did a show about it and we were able to watch it multiple times. But I mean, it kind of sucks, I think. What do you guys think?
I mean, whatever you choose to do, you do. I mean,
yeah.
I mean, if you're a person who wants to go see the theater, you have that option. If you want to watch it at home, you got that option. So, and I imagine it's not a financial concern, or they wouldn't do it. So they must know more than everybody knows. So
yeah,
I don't know. I mean, we want people to see theaters, but some people just don't like them. Some people don't like money. They don't like the COVID. They don't like flu. They don't like noisy teenagers ruining their experience. I mean,
even so, Halloween Kills made $131 million at the theater, so it still has a good chance to make some money.
Yeah, I did mention. I wondered if the reaction to Halloween Kills, which was very divisive. I mean,
yeah,
a lot of people hated that movie. Thought it was awful. I mean, my initial reaction was, this isn't very good. It took a while to grow on me. And thankfully, because I could stream it and watch it a couple times, it did grow on me. If I had just waited another 3, 4, 5 months to see it hit video like normal, I may have been like, yeah, fuck that movie. It's a piece of shit for 4 or 5 months. But because I got to warm up to it, because I got to watch for free over and over if I wanted, I was able to this is as awful as I initially thought.
Yeah, that for me, it took a couple of viewings to really warm up. I know me and Seth came to blows on it, I think. And Seth nearly handed in his letter of not recommendation, resignation. I think. Seth, what about you? How do you feel about ends coming to the theater and streaming?
I mean, personally, I don't like it. I I don't understand why there's not, because I mean, most movies make the most of their money within the first 2 weeks. I don't see why they had to rush to throw it on streaming at the same time.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, Halloween Kills made 131 million, but Halloween 2018 made 255 million.
Mm-hmm.
So and I understand when they did it with Kills because people were reluctant to go back to theaters, stuff like that. But now we've had, I'll say the correct name, Spider-Man 3, and we've had, Top Gun, a sequel to a 30-year-old movie that proved that people are definitely willing to come back.
Yeah.
And I'm a big movie theater guy, so I'm just kind of like, why you want to do that? But like Nate said, they know something we don't. So
at the same time, it does lead to the possible demise of theaters. So that's
I just don't want it to become I don't want it to become a constant thing, because at first, like, all these studios were like, well, because of COVID, we're gonna release some here and here, and it's just for this year, blah blah blah, and you know what I mean. So it was like kind of forgiven then, and I worry that's gonna be a habit. I mean, Redbox and Netflix already killed video stores. I don't want streaming to kill theaters.
Yeah, because the theaters are who are the losers in this whole situation.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I'm going to see it in the theater regardless, and then I will watch it on Peacock just to get a refresher before our show. But I love. But it's one of my favorite things to do is to go see a movie in the theater. It's one of my favorite places to be. Really, I love seeing movies in the theater. It's
no distractions, man. You could you can't just sit there on your phone. You're not going to. You don't want to go to the bathroom because you can't stop it. You don't want to miss something. So you're engaged at the movie theater completely.
And it's like an experience, it was one of the impressive things back when we were in high school or something like that. Oh, did you see episode 1? I was like, yeah, I was there opening day in the theater. I was there opening day on Peacock. You know what I'm saying? Like. And that's the one thing I hated about Halloween Kills last year. Not the movie itself, but like the overload of people talking about it on. Like as soon as something hits streaming, you know about it because every single person watches it. Like
at midnight. So
it's like Black Phone just came out, I think, on Peacock or something. And like my timeline was full of it. And I haven't been on Facebook much, and I'm seeing Black Phone is this, Black Phone is that. I'm like. Yeah, that's one of my problems, but I'll just turn Facebook off. I will be at the theater to see Halloween Ends because I saw Halloween 6, Halloween Resurrection, Halloween H2O, Rob Zombie's Halloween. So I've seen most of them, or a good bulk of them in the theater. So I'd like to see this one in the theater. I want to see how it ends. So. Anyway, the two other pieces of news. Get back to the theater, man. There's a lot of good stuff.
Yeah, COVID issues there 3 times. You said.
Oh, no.
That would scare me too.
Yeah, luckily, here, we've got assigned seating, and I wait till damn near the last minute to book seats and try to get an empty theater if I can. So, but a couple bits of news. Before we move on to talking about Candyman. Well, Halloween Ends is going to be an event movie. So yeah, that's exactly. Hellraiser has a release date finally on Hulu. Seth and I were talking before the show. We hope that it gets a physical release at some point. For me, as a collector, I want to have the copy of it, even if it's bad. But October 7th, my daughter's birthday, actually. The Hulu's Hellraiser will come out. Either of you guys excited about this one?
I am. When's a quick question to Bert? When's the last Hellraiser movie that had a theatrical release? Because they were mostly direct to video,
wasn't it?
Bloodline.
Yeah, 94, 96.
Yeah, so almost 30 years.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that, I mean, the people, the guys that made this is the one that made the Night House, right?
Yeah,
Really excellent films. We got good talent there. I'm really excited about a female Pinhead. I think that was a good move, because if it's just another dude, he's just going to have to live in Doug's shadow.
Yeah, that's true.
She has a big open window to reinvent it, make it her own, because she's not going to be compared as much to Doug because of that. So that's what's got me really excited to see what they do with that character.
Mm-hmm.
And Hellraiser is one of the truly great properties that I feel just deserves excellence again, and I would like to see it rise to the day of when Clive was still involved, and that level of uniqueness that Clive Barker brings to this genre, because I think I would love to see more Clive Barker and have him return to the director's chair if possible. I don't know if his health is up to it, but I just think that guy's one of the most original voices the genre's ever had.
He was the future of horror at one point, right? Seth, I know you're excited about it.
I'm very excited about it. I'm a huge fan of that franchise, even the bad ones. I mean, I love them. I watched that series.
First of all, Seth has a great ranking and review up on thehorrorsyndicate.com. So check that out if you can. It's up to date to Judgment. So go ahead, Seth. Sorry.
Yeah. So, naturally I was already excited for this. And as much as I would love to see a Hellraiser movie on the big screen, because it's the one franchise I haven't, I know that this is not a franchise that was very successful on the big screen. We've had years of direct-to-video, so I'm a little less harsh on this decision to release it to Hulu instead of theatrical. But David Bruckner and the writers with him from Night House. I thought the Night House was really good.
It was.
And it was actually, I guess they took parts of it they had a different pitch for Hellraiser, and you could kind of see the Hellraiser elements in it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm, because of that, I'm very, confident with this movie. I'm just really looking forward to it.
Yeah. And I'm happy we got a release date. They gave us a cool little, what is it, like 12 or 15 second, definitely tease, and then this great picture, if you look deeply, you can see Pinhead back there. So I'm pretty excited as well. I'm a huge fan of the first 3 movies for sure, and I like Bloodlines, and Inferno's not bad. They kind of peter off a little bit, but yeah, I'm really excited to see what they do with this one. I agree with what Nate said about the female. I can't remember her name offhand, but I'm excited to see what she does as Pinhead, and I think I still think she's going to get the unfair comparisons to Doug Bradley.
Oh, she will.
Yeah, but
but there's something really intriguing about a figure that's, because I imagine she's going to play it graceful and elegant like a woman can do.
Mm-hmm.
There's a seductive nature to the woman, that really it lends itself to that part, like that character, so it's all about pledge. So to take the female Cenobite and Pinhead and put them together would be just, to me, I'm just really excited about that, because I do think if it was just another guy, I would just kind of feel like, well, he's going to look too similar to Doug, even if it, but with this, it's a completely different figure in every way.
Yeah, and it's going back to the Hellbound Heart as well, because the Cenobites were kind of genderless. It wasn't called Pinhead in that novella,
right?
Yeah.
But the lead Cenobite in there was described as being feminine and having a soft voice and stuff like that. So and not to mention too, I don't know how important this is, but the actress Jamie Clayton is transgender. Used to be a man, so it kind of really kind of fits with what Clive established in his book. Not to mention in the Scarlet Gospels, there was a paragraph in there that really suggested that there was more than one hell priest, more than one person has been hell priest.
I've heard that. Yeah.
Right, and then there's the comic book where Kirsty becomes.
I read that. Yeah.
The hell priestess, and so
Well, I like the idea of a genderless. It kind of brings up the whole conversation about the Sandman show right now, and how people were kind of upset about Desire being a transgender actor. And it's like, but it makes sense that Desire would not have a classified sex either or. Like, I mean, desire, pleasure, which is what the Cenobites are about, should be genderless in many ways. So, because it's appealing to everyone.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And not to mention, Clive Barker is involved with this. He's got the rights back, so that's pretty exciting for this franchise, really.
Yeah, I think it's. I mean, fingers crossed. We get something really good. I mean, Hulu just gave us a great Predator movie, so let's see if they give us a great Hellraiser movie.
Yeah. And I'm confident that we'll hopefully get a physical release of it too, because I was telling Ray earlier. I mean, they have released, like, I have 11/22/63 on Blu-ray.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
Their Castle Rock.
Castle Rock. Yep.
So
I have a DVD, but yeah, I hope we get I'll figure out a way if not. So
for Sean, I'll have to. I wish I could remember this. I know it's not on. You don't have Hulu in the UK, but I think I heard that it was going to something else that you guys do have. I wish I remember what it would
be weird if in Clive Barker's home country, right, the Hellraiser show on. Yeah.
Listen, Clive came from here, but you guys can't watch his movie.
Bunch of wankers.
His property. Anyway, yeah. So I'm excited. We're all excited. Do you guys want to do a show about this? A review.
When does it come out?
October 7th.
1 week before Halloween ends.
Yeah.
I would like to do a show on it.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Unless it's awful.
We'll decide. We'll decide as it happens. Next bit of news is I don't have an image because they haven't released anything yet, but Evil Dead Rise is coming to the theaters. This was a Netflix movie, if I'm not mistaken, right?
HBO Max.
HBO Max. Okay, so it's now coming to. It's getting a theatrical release, which is fantastic because I've seen all of the Evil Dead movies in the theater, and I'd like to see this one too. I'm not as hyped about Evil Dead Rise. I'm copying off you, Seth, because I saw what you said earlier about calling it Demons 2. But yeah, Seth, you seem to have the skinny on this. Why don't you take the lead?
Yeah, well, I mean, I heard about like maybe a month or two ago that there was apparently test screenings for this that went very, very well, to the point where it was making the studio kind of reconsider their position on releasing it just to HBO Max. And according to the article today released by Bloody Disgusting, it was because of the positive test audience reactions that prompted them to decide to, instead of releasing it to HBO Max this year, to push it until April, I think, of next year, so they can do it theatrically, which huge win.
That's cool because, I mean, 2013 will be 10 years since the last Evil Dead movie, but that made almost $100 million on a $17 million budget. So this could I mean, there's a ton of Evil Dead fans, regardless of how they might feel about this, and I'm sure they'll see the movie. I'll probably see it in the theater because I love going to the theater, and horror is always fun in the theater, unless you're seeing The Witch and the people won't shut the fuck up.
Yeah, you get to see Demons 2 on the big screen. That's awesome.
I always wanted to. I love Demons 2. Nate, any interest in this one?
Oh yeah, Evil Dead's always fun. So, I mean, it's a unique type of property, and I mean, Ash is in this one, right? This is like continuing, isn't that, or is it? What is it? I don't know much. I haven't kept up with it.
First of all, it takes place in a high rise in like New York or something, right?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and there's no Ash. Like Bruce Campbell's, he is a producer. He was heavily involved with the development of this.
Is Raimi behind it? Is he making it, directing it?
Raimi and his partner there, I forget his name.
Scott Spiegel or
no, the one, his producing buddy there, whatever.
Yeah.
They're all involved with producing it. They were all involved. They all handpicked the director and the story, stuff like that. So it was.
So they're like involved producers on it.
Yeah.
Hands-on.
Yeah, exactly. And so I forget the name of the guy who wrote and directed this. Lee something, I think.
I'll look it up.
But yeah, so anyway, it doesn't, Bruce said he's done as Ash, but this one's about, I guess there's like this chick who goes to visit her sister at her high-rise apartment, and
so it's Rick.
Yeah. Rosary Beth pays an overdue visit to her older sister Ellie, who is raising 3 kids on her own in a cramped LA apartment. The sisters' reunion is cut short by the discovery of a mysterious book deep in the bowels of Ellie's building, giving rise to flesh-possessing demons and thrusting Beth into primal battle for survival as she is faced with the most nightmarish version of motherhood imaginable. Oh, are we going to get to see some kid deadites?
Ooh.
Lee Cronin is the director.
Lee Cronin, yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, might as well.
Melissa Sutherland is in this. Lily Sullivan, not familiar with the names, which I'm okay with that. Yeah. So April 21st, 2023, we'll be getting a new Evil Dead, and I'll wait for it to get a theatrical release for sure. Was it going to come out this year on HBO Max?
It was supposed to, yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
It never had like a release date set, but the plan was to release it this year.
Okay. All right. So just to recap, Halloween Kills coming to Peacock, or Halloween Ends coming to Peacock. Evil Dead Rise is getting a theatrical release next April, and Hellraiser October 7th on Hulu. So all good, pretty good news day overall, I think, for horror. It's kind of a busy news day. We usually don't have days like this when it comes to horror, where we get a lot of news. I mean, the Halloween news has been out for a few days, but Roadhouse remake on the way. Yep, that's happening too. With Jake Gyllenhaal, right? Running Man remake. All right. Fatal Attractions. Oh my God. That reminds me, I need to cancel my Paramount Plus. I watched Paranormal Activity, whatever it's called. Not very good.
And 45 original horror movies no one's talking about.
Yeah, exactly. The Barn 2 is coming out. So anyway, the topic for tonight, back to it, is Candyman, the 1992 film that is quickly growing. Not growing, like getting higher on my list of favorites. I kind of alluded to it early on. Yeah, there's a lot of toys coming out too. Alluded to it early, but I saw it in 92, 93 after it came out, and I just wasn't very impressed. And I don't think I quite understood it till I saw it as an adult, when I think nearly 20 years later. So, but I really love it. I love Clive Barker. Tony Todd. I'm sorry, the dog just barked. Tony Todd in the role of Virginia Madsen, I think it's overlooked in this movie with her performance, because she was really great in this movie as Helen. And there's just a lot going on with this movie, and I want to definitely get into it. But first, I want to get your guys' kind of experience with it and your first thoughts of the movie, Nate, if you will.
Like you, I saw it on VHS.
Oh, shit.
What? After
that, we'll do this.
Oh. I thought Nightmare on Elm Street was on the way. Everything else.
Wishful thinking.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw it like you. I saw it on VHS, I guess 93 maybe. I guess probably when it took a year.
Yeah.
And I think I was also, I remember thinking it was good. I mean, we're in a time where horror was kind of tanking.
Yeah.
The slashers on it was dead. We just got Freddy's dead, and I think the movie in many ways isn't much. I was in high school at the time, and it was a very much more adult, grown up film.
Yeah,
it's called a slasher film, but there are no teenagers really in this movie. It's not a teenagers getting slashed and killed by a boogeyman. setup. It's much more of a Dracula type film in that vein, but a slasher film. It was one that I saw, but I think I was moving towards where film was, because the horror was kind of taking a back seat in the early 90s with the arrival of Hannibal Lecter and Kathy Bates and Misery and things like that were becoming more. The supernatural was becoming less and less popular. We got Seven. It was going far more into realistic boogeymen than the fantastic. And I think maybe I was moving away from it. I think I was moving more into, that was around the time where I started becoming more of a big film buff in terms of like, it's the rise of like Spike Lee and Tarantino and Richard Linklater. And so I was moving towards that with my interests, instead of horror was kind of losing its grip on me.
And that was a big time for Tarantino. Tarantino really.
Yeah. So there was a big shift in genre filmmaking. Crime films and serial killer films and things like that were overshadowing horror, and we got some good ones in that little early 90s with like New Nightmare, and we talked about In the Mouth of Madness and People Under the Stairs and things like that. They were Army of Darkness, to talk about Evil Dead. Fun, cool films, but still, it's talked about greatly that there was a kind of flatline a bit there of excitement till Scream hit about 4 years after this movie. Because slashers really had kind of worn themselves out. Even a movie like Hellraiser may have benefited if it had come out 4 or 5 years earlier, and we wouldn't have got the straight to video or Hellraiser came at a late time, so did Candyman. Yeah. And in the buzz of the 80s worship of horror, and they
both get sandwiched in with slashers,
and they do, and neither really are slashers.
No. Yeah.
So I think I just was underwhelmed. I wasn't underwhelmed. It was a good movie. I never thought it was a bad movie, but I didn't watch it. I didn't keep watching it. I didn't do the repeating like I would have done the Nightmare movies or the Friday movies or the Halloween movies. And so it wasn't until I think some of your all's enthusiasm when I came on the show, you all talked about Candyman far more than I even thought about it in years. And I watched it again. I went, fuck, this is fucking fantastic. Like I fell in love with it.
Yeah.
And every time I watch it, I'm like, this is like, it's like I slept on it for 25 years.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And and every time I watch it, I'm like, I watched it today, and I just like, damn good movie. It really is. Yeah, there's so much to talk about.
I can't believe it's 30 years old. Yeah, that's exactly what I felt like after I saw it. I found it for $5 or something like that, or maybe even less at a flea market on VHS, and I was like, I'll add this to the collection. I'll give it a rewatch. And I remember watching it with Elizabeth, my wife, and we were both just looking at each other like, how fucking great is this movie? Like how great is Helen's character? In her complete arc in this movie. Anyway, Seth, let's get some of yours, and then we'll do the reviews, and then we'll get into the thickness of this movie.
Yeah. So. I mean, I wasn't big on horror growing up, but I always did see the posters for this and the sequel, Farewell to the Flesh, on the back of comic books. I probably have tons of them in my collection that still have it. But
send me one.
Yeah. And then I think around the time my interest got really peaked in it, I don't know if you guys remember this. There was some sort of like video, I forgot what it was called, like something about like Boogeymen or something like that, and it had
the killer compilation.
Yeah. And I was watching that with a buddy, and they showed the scene in the parking garage. I believe
which is on my TV right now.
Yeah, I believe that was the scene, and I was like, okay, this is really cool. I have to check this movie out now. Mm-hmm. And I watched it, and I loved it. I mean, even then, I didn't have, me personally, I wasn't like Nate, where I was overwhelmed with horror and then moving on or anything like that. This is when I was actually starting to get into horror from the other types of genres I was typically watching. And yeah, I mean, the direction from Bernard Rose is great. And I think what really gets me is the score from Philip Glass.
Man.
You know,
that's something I want to get into. The score is brilliant. It's actually my phone ringtone, the Candyman theme. Every time somebody calls me, it pops up.
That score is 50% of this movie. It really is. The elevation of it, the class of it is so much in that Helen theme. It's beautiful, and it just immediately delivers the fairy tale vibe that this movie has.
Yeah, I agree, and I was gonna say it also gives it a gothic quality.
Yeah,
in my opinion. So anyway, go ahead, Seth.
Yeah. So yeah, the score really got me too, and I think that was around the time I can't remember. I could be wrong, but I think around the time I watched this, it was the same time that Philip Glass also did a new score for the 31 Dracula. I don't know if you guys have ever watched a movie with his score.
I don't think so.
Watch it. It really
that makes total sense to me.
It's beautiful. It's him in the Kronos Quartet, and it really elevates a lot of the scenes, especially the confrontation between.
Is that available to buy or anything like that?
It'll be on your set. It's either a special feature or you go to the setup, but it's been on every release since '99. So
keep talking. I'm gonna look.
So yeah. So anyway, not to take this separately, but yeah. Candyman, I think too, it's, unlike a lot of the slashers, it has a really deep and interesting story. It's got some interesting commentary going on with it.
This one?
Yeah.
It's on that. I got this one.
It'll be on both of those.
Okay, awesome.
Check that out.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Seth.
Yep. Yeah. So anyway. Yeah. So anyway, what I really like about Candyman is how story and character based it is, how haunting it is, especially with the music. Tony Todd's performance is fantastic.
Yeah.
The scene with the dog is when Helen first wakes up to that whole scene, that's crazy, and the craziness just keeps going on from there. And I don't know. That's a lot of words to say. I really love this movie.
It's kind of like almost what George Lucas did with the Joseph Campbell stuff, where because Candyman is an amalgamation of so many existing things and like of course it's from Clive Barker's short story, which was probably pulled from a lot of things. A lot of the elements that happened in the movie were pulled from real reports, real crimes, real things. Then he's pulling from two of the biggest urban legends there are, the Hook and the Bloody Mary legend, and so it's like he borrowed, and those urban legends are so much a part of us. It just like Halloween borrowed from the Hook and from the Caller Upstairs, Have You Checked the Children storyline, and the babysitter stuff and all that. So. And the whole movie is really engrossed in urban myth and urban legend, but also just the fear of urban, the fear of the black man and poverty and class. And I like what
Cabrini Green directly too.
Because I like what Rose said about how, and it's true. Anytime you go anywhere, like I just went to Chicago. And people say, "Oh, you got to watch where you go. You can't go in that neighborhood. You don't go. There's some areas you don't want to go in." It's like, but normal people live in those neighborhoods. Like it's just, and there are dangerous people, but most people aren't. That's where they are. That's where they can't get out. That's where they have to exist. And that I think that frightens people, not just from a racial situation, but also just from people's fear of being there, of being poor, of being forced to live that place, this scary place that they talk about. Like when we were driving to Chicago, we were passing through Gary, Indiana, and I knew Gary, Indiana is the murder capital of the world because the population was so bad, and that's where Michael Jackson was from, And I remember hearing like how awful that place was, and And so I was like, well, if Michael Jackson's house is 7 minutes down the road, which it was from where we were, it's like I kind of want to see Michael Jackson's childhood home, the Jacksons. And so there's a little anticipation, but we're driving through Gary, Indiana, and it's like a dead ghost town. I mean, it is like Candyman's. It's like there's hardly anybody out. Of course, everyone's African American mostly, and you're driving through there, and it is, the ghetto, and it is in,
We have that
scary place
here, East St. Louis.
And the thing about that, in St. Louis, you hear that too, and the thing is, like, Louisville has that. I'm from Louisville, Kentucky, which people don't think of Kentucky, but Louisville is the biggest city in Kentucky, and it is an urban town.
I prefer Paducah.
Well, the thing about Kentucky, like, every town is
an Elm Street.
You can go 1 block away, and it's an area you're not supposed to go in, but 1 block over.
Every town has a bad side of town.
Yeah, but is it really bad, or is it because they want us to believe that African Americans are a threat and we need to keep them there? And I mean, that's what a lot of this is playing into.
Yeah.
That we need to put them all in jail. We need to put all that stuff. So, and they talked about that, like when Bernard Rose said that, they had police escorts to go into Cabrini Green, but he went by himself once and had no problem. And he goes, all we did was we met families there. Like there were some teenagers, there were some gangs, there was some shit like that, but they paid them off and they got them on, on their side. He goes, but really all we met were families, regular families who were just struggling, and they demonized it. That's what it's an urban myth. It's an urban legend that these are like the worst places in the world to go, when it's really just people struggling.
Yeah.
And that scares people, especially people who are, living paycheck to paycheck, and like I'm 1 paycheck away from being in that situation. Like I think that fear of that which is a very interesting situation and a big topic, which is odd that that's what that movie is about. But when Jordan Peele does it, all of a sudden, it's all about race now. I was like, it was always about race and class. And Clive Barker's story was about class and that, and it was always about that. Even if it was a white character, Candyman was white in the book, it was still about class in England, and it's during the Margaret Thatcher years and all. So this movie, this story was always social commentary and political, and
100%.
Yeah.
And when people were talking about 2021, they didn't go back and watch and understand the 1992 movie. It was the same damn thing for the most part, social commentary on what was happening at the time.
Yeah. I mean, it's right. This movie was being filmed when the Rodney King shit happened, like when the riots happened. And they were afraid that when this came out, it was going to be seen as racist. And it was. There were a lot. I've read a lot of articles of Black filmmakers who say this movie is problematic. And I rewatched the part on Black Noir, or Noir Horror Noir, whatever it was.
Horror Noir.
About how, and most of them were positive on there about it.
Mm-hmm.
But there were people saying it was problematic. I read an article of Bernard 30 years later talking about it, how he said people mistook the film. They missed that stuff because some people did take it as racist, and some people mislabeled this movie as the white savior thing. That Helen is this white woman who's going to come in and save the black. It's like, no, she makes everything fucking worse. Like,
she does. Like, how is she the savior? Oh my god.
She's not the white savior. Her meddling causes more death and
big time
tragedy than
she's almost the villain of the story if you pay attention,
in many ways. Yes.
And that's also part of the commentary in the movie too. There is like a line of dialogue from Helen's, where she's talking to Bernadette about how, bunch of people can get shot here every day and the police don't do anything. One white woman gets hurt and they lock the place down. So
exactly what happened to Candyman. He gets lynched for, instantly, even if they were in love and it wasn't a rape and it wasn't a, whatever. No, it's a black man slept with a white woman, so we must cut his arm off and torture him. into the bees. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, the movie was always about this stuff, and so it's just people are just so trigger happy to attack anything Jordan Peele touches because of comments he said. But everything Jordan Peele has said to me has not been controversial. Like, I mean, people took problems with him saying, "Oh well, I'm probably not going to cast a white male lead in any of my movies because I've seen that movie already." And so people were like, "Oh, racist." It's like, well, no, he's true. It's true. Because I went through my top 100 horror films of all time list, and I tried to see how many of them had a black lead character, and there's hardly any. It's like Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead. It's so small that we really have seen just white leads in horror. And that was when I saw Us, it hit me in that part where they're driving to the beach. I'm watching a black family, and it's not about them being black. That movie's not about race.
No.
It's about class, about poverty. It's the same things that this movie's kind of dealing with. Because there are white, poor people. There's everybody. I mean, it's poverty in general, and a lot of that's what Us is about. Because for every privileged family, there's a family struggling, and that's kind of what Us is really about. We're the same, but you have everything we don't. We're underneath you. We're below you. Is what Us was about. Not about black and white and all that. But I'm just like, I get what Jordan's saying when I watch Us, because I'm seeing a black family as the leads, and it's not about their race. And almost all black films that I had seen growing up was always they're in the ghetto, or they're in the hood, or they're, horror. What was it? Tales from the Hood. It's always about the hood in a lot of
that's
stories.
Total 90s too, though.
Yeah, and this movie was not, and Us was not that. It was just, we're seeing, and just like Get Out or Nope, we're seeing black leads, and like people are going to see these movies, and that's a big positive change. That, oh, we can see these movies and everyone wants to see them. And I think that's where people are hanging too much on what Jordan is saying. But Jordan is a guy who's in the power position now to make the movies that aren't going to get made with the certain types of casts, because white Hollywood isn't doing that. And here's a guy who, I mean, in the 80s, we had Eddie Murphy was the biggest movie star in the world. That was kind of a big shift. He really was.
Yeah.
But there still weren't an abundance of black movie stars in the 80s. It was Eddie Murphy because he made everybody laugh. It's kind of like the Michael Jordan thing, like in Do the Right Thing, where Spike Lee's talking about, talking to John Turturro, like, your favorite basketball player is Michael Jordan, and your favorite movie star is Eddie Murphy, and your favorite singer is, Prince or whatever. But you say in this and in that and in that, So, and Spike Lee really changed a lot of things in the 90s. But this whole rejection of Jordan Peele is often fueled by the race thing. And I don't think he's pushing it in a negative way or an agenda way. I think he's just trying to normalize movies like Candyman getting made, movies like Get Out getting made, and Nope getting made, because he's in a position that he can help perpetuate that and maybe change some. And he's proven it. I mean, people are going to see these movies. These are event movies. And, I just read an article just that people were just blasting him. Just, oh, he sucks. He's terrible. He's one of the worst filmmakers ever. And I'm like, I don't get it. And it can't just be, for the normal reasons. But, that's a whole thing we can get into.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we got into that a little bit when we talked about Us a couple of years ago when we did that episode. But yeah, I mean, you're right, though. There's a lot to get into with that. Before we go too far into the movie, let's do, if you can, I like Nope. Let's do your reviews real fast if you're cool with that.
Sure. Although I feel like I just talked a lot. I think I went on like a 20-minute rant.
Did you need some water?
I don't need a water, but maybe you guys can talk for a bit so they don't get tired of me and my agenda.
Your agenda. No, go ahead and do these, and
okay.
We'll get into some good stuff.
I only have 4. It's short.
Okay.
There wasn't a lot of hate for Candyman.
There shouldn't be.
Yeah. Okay. 1-star Amazon review by Dolly Britzman. It makes no sense. Absolutely stupid. A very bad purchase for me. Yuck. Awful, stupid, nonsensical, old in story and acting. Unbelievable. Don't waste your money. Okay, Dolly.
Okay, Dolly.
All right. 1-star review, Lynn Brown. Very slow and boring because this movie is so old. I was 16 years old. It can't keep up with newer, faster moving plots we are used to watching. Who is we? Overall, not worth renting. Go back to Pokemon or something. Okay. 1-star review, OCP RoboCop. Come on, RoboCop. You're better than this. Lame. Worst movie I have watched in my life. I guess in my life. 90 minutes I will never get back. I love the originality. My friend suggested I watch it. Fail. All right, I think it's the last one. 1-star for Mary Urine. A lot of women. Thumbs down. Had to watch it for a class. Hated it. That's it.
For a class?
I guess, I don't know. Maybe a
class
on horror or racial stuff, or who knows. It seems weird. A class that signs Candyman.
Yeah.
Sounds like a cool class. I'll take that class.
Was that the last one?
That was the last one. There weren't a lot of negative comments for it. So
yeah, I don't think there should be. Candyman's a fantastic film. I love it. So let's get into talking about it. Well, I mean, one thing like I noticed when I was watching it the other day again, but it's not even a problem. It builds the character, what she's doing, like Helen, and you kind of get put in her world. You get put into the world of Cabrini Green and all that, but you don't see Candyman for almost 45 minutes.
It's like 45 minutes, which really goes back. It's actually a good thing to do that because Orson Welles talked about the best type of character is that character who's talked about for the whole movie and then shows up at the end or in the middle. Like
you can still feel the character in the movie, even though you don't see him. Yeah,
like the third man. So you're spending 45 minutes building up this character, this legend, this thing, and if we see him right away, it loses that power when he does finally appear. So it is really good to take that time to invest and build that character, and that's what scary stories are about. That's why even though we see Jason before, if Friday the 13th 2 just had them telling that campfire story about the history and the legend and people talking about Jason until like 25-30 minutes into it, and then we see him, it's a more effective thing because it's just like all right, we're walking down the street and we're not scared of anything and we're fine. But if I tell you a ghost story before we walk down that dark street, you're going to suddenly be scared about what's in the dark, but you weren't if we hadn't talked about Candyman for 20 minutes before we took that walk. So it gets into your head and it builds that mythos, and that's what urban legends do. That's what this movie's so much about fear and the birth of fear and how like Candyman. I was reading an article how they said this movie, Candyman's like Dracula Frankenstein. He's not like Freddy. And then Bernard Harmon's like, this character exists because people know about him and are afraid of him. I was like, or he wouldn't exist. I'm like, that's Freddy. That's a Freddy work. Freddy was a character that lived off of fear. He existed off of fear, and that's where he got his power. And now he got to be. And it's like, and Candyman says that, I live in their whispers, and they have to talk about me around the neighborhood. And that's what keeps the Candyman mythos running and keeps him around. And that's what stories are. That's why we retell stories. You want to attack remakes or sequels? Like, we retell stories. That's how they live on. If we don't do that, this movie is supporting remakes and sequels because it's like saying stories need to be retold and spread and spread and spread, or they die. Just like Freddy dies if he's not talked about. Just like Candyman dies if he's not talked about, or Helen, or whoever the character is. I like that in the sequel that they had. It kind of shifted to her urban legend in the beginning that led to Candyman, who this guy never heard of, So stories, that's how stories and art live on, is by conversation and about discourse and about us carrying it on and retelling and keeping it alive. And so in many ways, that's what Candyman is playing on, is the power of story and the importance of retelling and then the excitement of discovering. Like when they're interviewing these kids in the very beginning of the movie and they're talking about the urban legends and the smiles they have as they're listening to these kids talk. And when they go into Cabrini Green and they're talking to people and the little boy's telling stories and Vanessa Williams is telling stories, it's like, it is an exciting thing to hear those things, those stories. That's why we were still obsessed with like Amityville Horror, and even though we know it's probably bullshit, we still want to believe it because it's fun, or we want to believe Bigfoot's out there, or Loch Ness monsters out there, or Jack the Rippers, or Zodiac or whoever. There's something that it's scary, but it's so intriguing and fun to I guess test death and test the unknown and test your fears. And that's what really, I think a lot of, especially when we're younger, when we get into horror, it's a test. Can we stand it? Can we watch Cannibal Holocaust? Can we watch Hellraiser? Can we watch The Exorcist? Can we make it through it? Do we have the balls to do this and watch it, get through it without running and turning it off and hiding?
One of the things about this though is like, just going back to how Candyman doesn't appear for the first 45 minutes or whatever. That's the point of this. This is Helen's story. It's about Helen, who is researching urban legends and how it really takes her on this journey into terror. And even though the movie's called Candyman, it's not about Candyman just going around killing people. It's about the legend of Candyman. It's about someone discovering that legend of Candyman.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I have no problem with the pacing or the Candyman not appearing until later at all, because I think what really works about this film is Virginia Madsen and her character, and as she's discovering these things and how she, how this kind of gets her put into a very bad situation.
It's a mystery story. Like you said, she's finding clues. She's discovering the mystery. She's solving the mystery. She's making. If she finds it in the first 10 minutes and meets Candyman, there's no discovery. There's no mystery. There's no chase. There's no adventure to uncover what it is that we're here for to uncover. If it's just boom, here is what you are looking for, and here's what you're going to see. And we talked. Both of you talked about Virginia Madsen. She is fucking fantastic in this movie. I've always
nobody ever talks about her when it comes to this movie.
Well, she said, and she said that this is the movie she gets recognized for more than anything else. People come up to her and talk to her about Candyman, and she's completely dedicated to this role, and she has such strength and confidence in this part. Like, I really like the character, even though she's fucking up and causing all this shit. I believe her. I admire her fearlessness in some ways. I mean, to be a white woman to walk through a gang area like she does. I mean, it's like that woman's got some brass balls, man. I mean, really. And she's like, the black girl's scared in some way. Like, she's like, you can't be walking in here. We look like cops. We're gonna get shot, But she's like, no, we're cool. We're fine. We'll be all right. And she does. She keeps going back on her own through the movie. I mean, she goes back there.
Yeah, like when she went to the bathroom and
crawling into that shit and all that. Which I was really interested. That was based on a real crime. There's somebody crawled through the Madsen cabinet and murdered somebody.
That's crazy before that. Yeah. They're connected by a medicine cabinet. Apartment.
But she is. It is one of the best. She's not a final girl, but she doesn't come up in the conversations with Jamie Lee Curtis and Heather Langenkamp, and she's just as good as anybody. It's been
maybe it's because she's not a final girl. Usually, I guess
but she's not. She doesn't play the victim in many ways, even though she sort of is, but she isn't. Like she becomes she becomes the Jesse Walsh in some ways of murdering people and doing these acts without knowing that she's done them, which is kind of that's another nightmare parallel. Is she is kind of like Jesse, and when she does do these things, but she is a very, very strong actress. And listening to her talk about having to put the bees on her when she was allergic to bees, and like even as the actress herself, she was fearless in doing this film. And I believe her, and I feel for her. I feel when she's going crazy and when her boyfriend's crying, because I started to feel that today when I watched it, when he's in there crying, when she's just mad and she's killed or taken the baby apparently or whatever. Or no, after she killed the friend, after she killed Bernadette.
Yeah.
He's crying. I'm like, I'm putting myself in his shoes. Like, yeah, like if your girlfriend or your wife or whoever is like murdering people and doesn't know what's happening, she's out of her mind. That would be so devastating. I mean, it would be so hard to deal with. And so that moment where he's crying there is like a great little moment that maybe not all horror movies would put in. I think that's just more of Bernard's elegance as a storyteller, that he would think about how all these people are affected by these things that are in horror movies just taken as, oh, well, that's part of horror cinema and that's a horror storytelling. And so sometimes characters in these movies don't react the way they probably would to trauma and to horrible things that happen. Like it happened in horror movies. Sometimes
that's a parallel. That's kind of a parallel to Elm Street, if you think about it, because you do get to see Nancy react to the people dying. You're right. You don't ever really get to see that.
Well, it's like one of my problems with Freddy's versus Jason was like, all these friends are dying and they just go have a rave party. And I'm like, dude, and then they like drop them off at the house. I'll see you guys later. I'm like, dude, there are dead people at the fucking cornfield. And you guys are just like, yeah, we're going home. We're going to watch Simpsons. And, it's like, no, like there's cause and effect. And that's important in this type of stuff. It is often glazed over for entertainment purposes or because it's slow and boring.
It's kind of surprising, though, that in that scene that you're talking about, that he's that upset because he's got that little filly on standby.
He's got her, but he still loves Helen, because that's what he cries at the end, remembering her.
Yeah.
That girl was just a piece of ass. That's all it was. He was in love with Helen, but things had. I mean, he was probably just sleeping with a girl, but he may not have been thinking about leaving Helen for her.
Well, I don't know, because like
when she went nuts, he's like, "Yeah, go ahead, move in, babe."
Yeah, okay. I was gonna say,
make me some steak.
That seems to really happen. Paint the apartment pink.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't want a pink apartment. Helen wouldn't have painted that shit pink. She's a grown woman.
Yeah, that's. I think that's one of the things, like rewatching this the other day. I know we're kind of droning on about Virginia Madsen a little bit, but I still can't believe that she never gets to. It's like Reggie Bannister from fucking Phantasm. They don't get enough respect for what they like. Reggie carried him, and I think he carried the whole series, in my opinion. And so, like, she is the main character of this movie, and she has such a great performance. And like I said earlier, her arc in this whole thing, and the scene right now is the girl's painting, and as soon as she turns around to see Helen, she just breaks down and like is terrified, because of what had happened before,
sorry, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, because she's gaining this reputation now, which leads to the end of the movie whenever she kind of becomes Candyman-ish. Helen's story is awesome.
We were talking about when we did In the Mouth of Madness, talking about the noir film noir aspects of Sam Neill's character and how he's handled and how the girl is. This movie's very noir. You could almost say that Helen is a private investigator type character, even though she's investigating this stuff
for a thesis or
whatever. The way she's got the cigarette and the way he lights her a lot of times with the eye light in the shadow is total noir lighting. Those beautiful shots where she's got the cigarette and the light's just hitting her eyes and the rest of her face is in shadow. She's got he lights her like a femme fatale in many ways in the film, which she kind of is, because she is causing all the chaos that's kind of happening, because that's what femme fatales do. They bring all the shit that falls on Humphrey Bogart's shoulders, and Richard mentions like so. There's that element of gothic horror and film noir in this film as well, and she is kind of an anti-hero. Like you said, she's not a final girl; she's an anti-hero because she is partly responsible, but at the same time, it's not that she stirs up all of this stuff, because it's all over the fucking place. I mean, Sweets for the Sweet is painted everywhere. Like Candyman, Candyman is alive and there, present in their consciousness, and they see it every day. Like that woman goes to her apartment every day, and it says "Sweets for the Sweet" on her door and on her wall. So Candyman is not just this forgotten thing that no one talks about. They all the little.
Well, everybody in Cabrini Green knows about Candyman. But me?
No, I think he's frozen.
Okay, I was gonna say, because you looked frozen too. But anyway, what I was saying was everybody knows who Candyman is in Cabrini Green. Like even that little kid that led her into the bathroom in that one scene. I hate that happened. I was hoping that since he wasn't using his phone, it wouldn't happen again. But one of the things I was going to mention earlier about the scenes, some of these scenes with, they think that she's doing everything. She can see Candyman, but nobody else can see him. Like in the hospital part where she's talking to the psychiatrist or whatever he is, and showing that she's freaking out and you can't see him there, even though he's like hovering above her. You know, it's like, that's another thing that they did in the sequel was they pinned everything that was happening on another person. And the thing I like about Helen's story is she does have it's like a complete arc, because she does have a redemption by the end of the movie when she goes into that bonfire and rescues, the next Candyman.
Yeah, and she becomes the very thing that she was kind of researching.
Yeah.
I would say, I wouldn't ever put Helen Lyle into the category of final girl at all, because I don't really put Candyman into the category of slasher. It's got a lot of gore to it, but it's very story oriented, very myth oriented. It's just a gory horror movie. It's not a slasher. I don't think slasher tropes apply at all in any sense of the word. And Helen's story is so much different in a lot of ways than, even such greats as Nancy. There's a lot more complexity to her character and her, her home life and her goals, and, just the terror that she gets plunged into as she's trying to achieve her goals. It's a much deeper movie than any slasher movie could even try to be. And
I was gonna say, the only thing that I think it gets lumped in there because of when it was released, it's got a single villain character, because he fits in with the Jasons and the Freddys. Like, I think that's why. But I've never thought of Candyman. Well, not until after I saw it in the last 5 or 10 years that it was a slasher movie. There's no way this is a slasher.
I think it's partially the way they marketed it. You're showing a guy with a hook who's a killer, and it's a very gory R-rated movie. So I think they were trying to appeal to the slasher crowd with the imagery of the Candyman himself.
Yeah.
But the movie itself is not even remotely slasher.
No, one of you guys said it earlier. It's almost I think it was Nate, something almost like a gothic Dracula type story in many ways. And I definitely agree with that.
It's definitely a, if not Dracula, Phantom of the Opera kind of thing. It's a love story in some ways. It's a romantic. I mean, he is. It seems like they do kind of fall in love in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And become one. And he doesn't kill her. He makes her a legend or one of himself. Like she becomes the new Candyman mythos, like in some ways.
Yeah.
And that's a really interesting switch. It is very. I mean, yeah. You take away the hook and some of the gore, and it isn't a slasher film at all. It doesn't follow the slasher trope. To me, the slasher trope is what Black Christmas or Halloween started, which was, you've got these teenagers who are out fucking or whatever, and there's a killer masked or whatever who is going to pick them off one by one, and there's going to be a chase at the end, and everything that they looked at in Halloween and replicated in Friday the 13th and all the other ripoffs of the early 80s of that movie. Candyman, Hellraiser, and Nightmare on Elm Street is also one of those movies that walks a line, because Freddy isn't just a masked psychopathic killer picking off teens one time. He's an entity. He's a ghost like Candyman. He's an urban legend. He is this dead thing that happened and people talk about Freddy in whispers. They have the jump rope song. There is a and I mean, Jason is kind of a ghost as well. I mean, in the first 4 movies, they're saying he's alive and he's real, but there is still a ghost story there. But Freddy even more so, and Candyman even more so. It's more of a phantom type of storyline. And so, yeah, I think just like people lump Hellraiser, there's a lot of those movies that get lumped into slashers that, they're not, like, I've even had discussions about Leatherface and Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I mean, I don't think that Texas Chainsaw Massacre was a slasher. I don't see it that way. Just because the guy was a masked killer, to me, doesn't make him a slasher. That storyline of slashers, because it doesn't follow that. I mean, these kids come to them. I mean, it's not they invade their house. It's not killers out stalking these young people. So, really, Halloween to me established that structure of what everything after it was, and Hellraiser doesn't do that, and Candyman doesn't do that. There's no group of kids that Candyman is systematically chopping down through the course of the movie to get to Helen. She's part of his. Again, it goes back to Jesse. Jesse is keeping Candyman. Jesse's keeping Freddy alive by doing the physical murdering or killing that he's not as a ghost as Helen is for Candyman. And
wouldn't you say? Sorry, Seth. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, wouldn't you say, with a Candyman or a Hellraiser, that they kind of go looking for it? I mean, with Frank in the Box, they were welcoming, the Cenobites and all the pleasures that came with the human configuration. And same thing with Helen. She was researching, doing a paper on Candyman, so she was welcoming it.
Yeah, and go ahead.
That's the thing with, I think, with a lot of Clive Barker's works. I mean, even if you read the short story, The Midnight Meat Train, the character is.
Well, that title's rough.
It's a really cool short story. The movie's okay, but it's a character who's actively seeking out stuff. And what I was going to say before, and this is relevant to what we're talking about, is, I mean, even with like Hellraiser and Candyman, it's like they market it, they put out, Pinhead and the Cenobites or Candyman, but they're not actually what the movie is about. I mean, especially Hellraiser, the title Hellraiser, or the original title, The Hellbound Heart, that refers to Frank. You know, in the Pinhead and Cenobites are barely in that first movie, and they're only a fraction more in the sequel. And then, of course, with the third one, they, the studio was trying to make them the icons and stuff like that. And I don't know. And I feel like when they kept going with the sequels and they kept trying, with Candyman and even with Hellraiser, they were trying to make them the horror icon, the horror slasher icons. And that, I think, is what helped kind of confuse people of what these movies actually are.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah. Yeah, because marketing is what puts people in the seats, and
I'm not complaining at all, too, because
right.
the poster for the first Hellraiser movie is spectacular. That's Pinhead hole in the box. That's
got it right there on the wall.
Yeah,
yeah.
And the '80s kind of put in people's heads, especially fans, and it's still felt today that. Because people, all they talk about now is we don't have the boogeyman we used to have. And we do. I mean, we've got the Fireflies. We've got Jigsaw. We've got Leslie Vernon and Victor Crowley. And none of them, Art the Clown, but none of them have been able to reach that height that Freddy and Jason and Michael and Leatherface and Pinhead.
Or Dracula and
Candyman kind of comes down in there, yeah. But it kind of...
Hey, where's my love for Wishmaster? Come on.
It kind of fucked the genre because people started to expect boogeymen and iconic boogeymen. And then we do get them, but there's some people who aren't even willing to accept, like Ghostface is a great iconic boogeyman. Or they
I
think
don't think Leatherface deserves all the accolades, by the way.
Well, after the first one, I think it's a brilliant character, brilliant performance. But, I mean, not after, but Gunner, to me, is one of the more interesting killers I've ever seen in these type of films. Whereas a lot of them are just, I mean, people can love Jason. He's just Michael Myers with a hockey mask. It really is. It's just like, it's the same character. It's a silent, mute, slow walking, chasing killer. With a knife or a machete. But the other face is something different. And Freddy was something different. And Pinhead was something different. And Candyman is something different. It's not just a carbon copy of one or the other. They all are more unique than probably the most popular out of all of them, which is Jason. So, yeah, but it seemed, like you said, it's just, that was what they were doing. They were just trying to find the franchise, and the franchise. They did by then. They knew the franchise was the killer. It took people to realize that Freddy was the franchise or Jason was the franchise. So when they saw, oh, we got this Candyman character, let's make him as slasherish, and let's market him, because they didn't make the sequel about Helen. They should have probably, but they made it about Candyman because they know, well, that's what kids are paying for. So we'll make all these movies about Pinhead, and we'll make all these movies about Candyman, because that's what gets asses in seats, not the story, not the. They just want to see more of that boogeyman guy.
Yeah, I like that the way this movie ends with Helen kind of getting that same kind of legend status that Candyman has, but I do like the sequel quite a bit. I'm writing an article for the HorrorSyndicate.com stating why it's I think it's an underrated movie.
I need to see it again because I haven't seen it since it came out, and I do remember liking it more then.
Yeah.
I remember liking Candyman, Farewell to the Flesh.
It's on Paramount Plus if you want to stream it.
I'll check it out. But I do think like Helen at the end.
Great title.
Helen is basically Bloody Mary by the end of the movie.
Yeah.
It's finally come full circle of the female scary figure standing behind you in the mirror to kill you. So yeah, I think this movie it's easily top 10 horror of the 90s without question.
I think it might be between this or Scream is my favorite. I mean, I love Silence of the Lambs as well, but man, like every time I watch Candyman, I love it so much more. And that score we touched on, it gets me every time. It's one of my favorite horror scores I think ever.
The thing about Scream is in my top 10 horror films, but if I have to be completely honest, the movie is very much of the 90s.
Oh, yeah.
Or I think this movie is a little more timeless. This movie could have came out in the 70s or the 80s or the 90s or the last 20 years, whereas Scream is very much of its era of that meta, talking about, like, Tarantino changed the game. Kevin Smith, everyone started writing like that in the 90s.
Yeah.
Of self-aware pop culture talk. And when I watch Scream, as much as I love it, and I love it dearly, and it is still brilliant, it's still smart, still sharp, it is very much a 90s film with the lighting, the acting, the costumes, the casting choices, and the dialogue and the way kids are talking like kids don't talk, you know. It was a very stylized movie, whereas Candyman has a timeless elegance to it. And I think it still holds up. Even though there's kids, like we just read, that it's slow and boring. But slow and boring usually, in my book, is part of the elegance of patience. Like they say, oh, can't keep up with the way movies are today. It's like, that doesn't make that better. Movies aren't better because they're fast and fly by. Like, we have to be absorbed and we have to be invested and we have to be pulled in. It can't be like, well, it's a music video. I watched 5 minutes and I'm over. Good. What's next? It's like that YouTube fucking bullshit. Like, I watched a 5-minute video instead of a 5-hour movie. You know, like, no, if a 5-hour movie is good, I'll sit through it. You know, and Candyman is good shit.
It's like people forget about how Predator or Alien or Aliens, it also took about half hour to 40 minutes before the action even started in those movies.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, this is it should be the standard, right? Set up your characters, your story, your conflicts, and then
how many times have I talked about character development in movies?
And all people do now is complain, I didn't care about the characters. Because you're demanding they go by fast. So you're demanding to get to the killer right away. I want to see blood and guts. I don't want to see kills. It's like, then that robs you of giving a fuck about these characters.
Do you want to finish your thought, Seth?
I kind of forgot where I was going.
Sorry, I didn't mean
just in general. I mean, it seems like when I hear these complaints about the pace of movies, and you know, you're talking about movies like this, and it's like, how many movies that are like adored classics that we all love, like Predator, Aliens, the Terminator 2, where the filmmaker, I mean, John Carpenter's Halloween, I mean, barely anything happens. That is a beloved movie, you know, but you try to do a movie like that now, it doesn't work all of a sudden for audiences. I just don't get it. And I feel like the craft of storytelling is actually kind of suffering because of that.
Yeah, like you said, Halloween, like we talked about, setting up the urban legend, does that in the first opening wonder. Yep. We learn of what this guy is or what he did, and then we jump forward and we hear Dr. Loomis laying it on even heavier, giving us the back and giving us the myth, giving us the urban. They're gonna give him Thorazine. He's gonna be, that's the idea. Like, this guy is bad news, and then he gets out, and then, like you said, he just follows them around all day. We don't see him do anything for about an hour, right? Probably an hour in when Andy gets killed.
Right. Yeah.
So he's just following around all day, and he's just that thing that's out there, and that's how we end the movie. He's still out there.
Yeah.
Where is he? But he's still out there, and it's like you said, it's good storytelling. It's simplistic storytelling, but sometimes simplistic storytelling takes time, and that's really when they stick with you. That's why the first Halloween is still, by most people's standards, the best one. I know a lot of people say Halloween 2. I love Halloween 2. It's great. But that one is more Friday the 13th, kill.
It's very 1981.
the lead star is just in a fucking coma the whole goddamn movie. So it's just very chop, stab, Friday the 13th. It's not the better movie than Halloween.
I don't know who says there's a better movie in the Halloween series that's not Halloween.
Yeah. Few people do. Some people say that part 2 is the best, and
I mean, I love part 2, but come on.
I love it. It's great. It has great atmosphere. It's great, but story-wise, it is not even in the same fucking league as Halloween was. It was serving what was popular then, which was what Friday the 13th was doing and what all that. And and John wrote it in a drunken stupor like a night or two. It's like, whatever. Kills this person, kills that nurse, kills that doctor, kills that, and it up the gore, up the splatter, and it's fun. And it's got a lot of great atmosphere and lighting, and it's still got Dean Cundy's cinematography was beautiful, and great score from John, but it is not the better storytelling movie. Halloween's far better told.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's one thing we didn't really talk about. Halloween 4 had good character development.
Halloween 4 is one of my favorites, and it has a lot of shitty flaws. A lot of weird things that happen where you're like, oh, why did they do that? But Halloween 4 is my favorite sequel, and it does. I care about Rachel Carruthers. I care about Jamie. I care about I even care about Grady.
Yeah, he's a douchebag.
I like Sasha in the movie. Yeah. And I love both. I love Donald, and it's a great Loomis movie.
It is. Oh yeah, it might be the best Loomis.
Probably
movie.
Be the best one.
Yeah.
Don't forget about Ted Hollister.
But people are so hung up on the mask in that movie that they hate the movie. It's like, it's a fucking prop, guys. Like, what about the movie?
Yeah, the
Get
movie.
Past the fucking prop.
I watched Halloween and Halloween Kills the other day, a couple weeks ago before we did the theory show that you missed, Nate. And then I was like, I'm fiending for some more Halloween, so I watched Halloween 2, and I was half tempted to watch 4, but I was like, I need to wait because I'm trying to wait till October because 4. I think 4 is my favorite sequel. Also, it's the one that came out at the height of, or not the height, but like when I was really cutting my teeth on horror. 88, when I saw all the Freddy movies, and that was the year of the sequel. The year, yeah, that was the best year.
And really, all of those sequels are pretty good at some level. Like Phantasm 2's probably the best of the Phantasm franchise, in my opinion. Jason 7 is not the best movie, but it's got an amazing Jason, and it's got some really cool moments, and it's kind of scary, and it's got a really different take.
The axe to the face was awesome.
Yeah, and in Dream Master, we all fucking love Dream Master, and Halloween 4. So, and Hellraiser 2 came out that year too, right? So.
Yeah, right. Yeah, 88.
It's an excellent year for horror.
Child's Play.
Maybe the best year of horror sequels.
Yeah. Oh yeah, 88's. We should do just a show on 1988.
Yeah, because you had Child's Play and you had Pumpkinhead and
your poster says it all. Killer Clowns from Outer Space came out that year also.
Yeah.
There's a lot of good.
Wasn't Fright Night 2? I haven't seen that in a long time. Wasn't that 88?
That was 88, wasn't it, Seth? I know you're a big fan of Fright Night 2.
Ooh, was it? I thought it was Fright Night 2.
I think it's 88.
Yeah, it was either 88 or 89, I think.
88.
88, yeah.
We should just do a whole show on 1988 one day.
I mean, that's where that piece came from. It was an article in Horror Hound magazine about 1988. And
I have that piece hanging in my house.
That was the year I became a horror fanatic. It was 1988. I went saw Dream Master, my first horror movie in the theater.
Oh man, I remember the hype leading. We did a whole show on Dream Master, but I'll never forget that was the first movie I was ever hyped for. It's like coming up with my own fan theories and shit. Was the Dream Master with the Wrath? That's a good movie actually. Have you guys seen the Wrath?
Wraith. Yeah.
Wraith. Yeah, that's a good one. Anyway, so Candyman. We didn't really get to dip too deeply into the score or even the cinematography, which
that opening shot. But there was like there was a camera that, I mean, it's so still.
The overhead of the city.
The overhead shot, it is so smooth, and no one had ever gotten that shot. I don't think I've seen that shot. I mean, now they could do it with a drone or whatever, but at that time, and they would shoot it from a helicopter or whatever, it would be at least a little shaky. But that thing is so smooth and perfect, that shot. I mean, even in Shiny, you get the shadow of the fucking helicopter. So that opening shot immediately establishes it as a well-made movie, because that is a really cool shot, and it's very perfectly done.
Skycopter traffic camera that they use. No, I'm joking. But that establishing shot mixed in with that score, and then the way the titles slide on the screen, I love it. And then you see Candyman nice and big. It just, that score, man, that is very haunting and sweet, and like there's I get so many different feelings out of that score. You know, it's, and I heard it. I remember watching American Horror Story season 1, and they popped that in there, and it was still worked. But I'm like, fuck, I need to watch Candyman because this score is phenomenal. It's got to be one of my favorites in horror, at least.
Yeah, there's a lot there to appreciate. I had something else on my mind about
Night of the Demons,
something in the film. There was something else early on, but yeah, and then I like the cast. I thought, I don't know the actress's name. I forget her. The one that plays Bernadette. You know, she had just done Silence of the Lambs, and she was great.
Oh, was that her?
In that, yeah, she was Clarice's classmate. So almost the same character in some ways, I guess.
Yeah. Vanessa Stella or something like that.
I can't remember. I know the younger. I can't believe that actress. You know, the one that played the mother. It still blows me away that in the sequel she looks hardly any different, and she was 30. She was like 30 or 28 or something in the first movie. And
that's
30 years later. Yeah, like she's like almost 60 now, and she does not look 60.
No. Cassie Lemon played Bernadette.
Yeah. I can't
Ted
remember.
Raimi was in it.
Ted Raimi, yeah, in the backstory.
Yeah.
It's I mean, I've always loved urban legends, and this may be one of the better films based on urban legends or talking about urban legends. Definitely better than Urban Legend.
Yeah.
Urban Legend is a total Scream ripoff, but
well, I mean, that was a sign of the times, you know.
Yeah, but that one's almost too close, because like a lot of like Rebecca Gayhart's speech at the end is totally Billy Loomis's speech. It's like she even takes direct lines from Scream. But yeah, there's so much here this movie deserves. It deserves to be up there with those greats, I think.
I think so. Candyman, like I don't remember. I'm gonna look it up. Where it fell on we did the top 25 of the 90s last year.
Yeah.
And I know it's on there because I may have had it ranked number 1 on my list. But it's a definite great of the 90s. I don't know. That's another one you don't see much on, and that's something that I'm kind of like been hyper focused on recently. Is movies that nobody ever talks about. And Candyman, as popular as the character is, nobody ever talks about the damn movie, you know.
And again, we talked about how no one talks about Virginia, and I arguably say she's better than Tony. Like she's more prominent.
Oh,
Tony's great.
The star of the movie.
Yeah, Tony's great, but she really is the one carrying the film.
Yeah. Candyman ranked in at number 4, then Misery, Silence of the Lambs, and Scream. In the Mouth of Madness is number 5, Seth.
And another movie that was I thought about, I talked about how movies were moving away from slashers and movies of fantastic. We had I talked about Silence of the Lambs and all that, but also a big movie game changer that was moving things was Jacob's Ladder.
Oh yeah, that never gets talked about.
Yeah, that movie was like when it came out, holy shit! Like when we saw the trailer for that. I was like, oh my God, it was another level thing. Like there was some things wed never seen before in that trailer. It was haunting.
That one scared me when I saw it.
Yeah, that was a scary movie.
Early. Yeah. The whole head thing and I don't know what they were, demons or what those things were that were following him around everywhere, just all those fever dreams he was having. And
we should talk about that movie.
Yeah, I like that movie quite a bit.
There was something I was going to bring up. Yeah, Bernard Rose, before he made this movie, made that movie Paper House, which I've never seen. I've been wanting to see. I saw the trailer; it looked really fucking interesting. If none of us have seen it, we got to make that one of our double feature movies.
Is it a horror?
I think it may. If it's not straight up horror, I think it's in that fantastical, gothic kind of vibe. we'll have to look at it, but I remember seeing the trailer. It came across my radar maybe a year ago, and I never did watch it, but the trailer intrigued me. Anybody out there seeing Paper House listening, you want to chime in on it?
It's available on YouTube, the Roku channel, Amazon Prime for free. It is labeled as a British dark fantasy film based on the 1958 novel Marianne Dreams. I mean, we can take a look at that one. Put it on our list.
Dark fantasy fits into horror, I think.
Yeah.
Have either of you guys seen Bernard Rose's Frankenstein movie? He did.
I haven't. I saw that he did it. I haven't seen it.
What was it called?
It's just called Frankenstein. What's his name? The main vampire from 30 Days a Night. Danny Houston.
Yeah.
He's in it. Carrie Ann Moss is in it. Todd is in it.
I think
Tony Todd plays the blind guy.
I think I heard Danny's in Paper Houses. Like, he's known Bernard all that time. Like, it's been like maybe a mainstay in his movies. He's not Candyman, but
is this movie any good, Seth? It looks like a modern take on the Frankenstein.
Yeah, it's a very modern take. I think it's more to do with like genetic cloning than building a person out of body parts. But it's a pretty interesting take. It's pretty grisly here and there, but Tony Todd's in it, and it's worth checking out if you guys haven't seen it.
Well, he's a filmmaker of class. I know I saw the Beethoven movie he made, Mortal Beloved, I think was the title.
Oh, it wasn't Beethoven too?
The dog movie.
Yeah.
He made a few other films. I think I've seen one or two others. I'm just blanking. But I like. I feel this guy's a real artist just from listening to the actors talk about him, listen to Clive talk about him, and just watching interviews. I think this guy's. That's why I'm really interested to see Paper House, his debut, because it looked pretty inventive.
Well, we've got 2 movies already lined up for September. Yeah. So maybe we can throw that into the next one that we do. Find another early 70s, because I'm enjoying the 70s movies we talked about, except for the Assignment Terror. I know Seth loved it, but not my cup of tea.
I wouldn't say I loved it.
Right.
Oh, there was another one. Did you guys catch? I said that Donald Pleasance was supposed to be originally wanted to play in 10 Rillington Place as Christie, and he didn't do it because he played in a real life serial killer in a movie called Dr. Crippen, which I found on YouTube, which I really want to watch because it's from, I think, the mid 60s or so. And like Donald Pleasance playing a real life serial killer, I want to see that movie. So
he can play anything, so.
Oh
yeah.
Say Donald Pleasance, I'm there.
yeah, pretty much. I'm the same way. That's one of the things I watched that documentary from '84, Terror in the Isles, the other day, because it was on AMC or something like that when I was a teenager, and I saw it, loved it, saw it was coming on again, recorded it. I watched it over and over and over, and honestly, in the mid '90s when I saw Terror in the Isles for the first time, at the end I paused my TV, even though you could see the trackings. I tried to write down every single movie they had on their list that they had to credit, because it's like a clip movie. And that was where I got a lot of my horror education, if you will, was from Terror in the Isles. But I watched it the other day, and I'm like, the funny thing is, Helena was watching with me, and she was naming some of the movies as they popped up. I'm like, I'm proud of you.
Proud of her.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I brought it up on the show before, that Terror in the Isles. Like I said, I couldn't get my hands on Halloween when I was growing up. Like, I couldn't find, none of the video stores had it. I could just never catch it on TV. I don't know how. But my first glimpse of Halloween, the original, I'd seen them, 4 and 2 and I think 3, but my first glimpse at Halloween was in Terror of the Isles. And I remember shot, they had the shot of Deborah pulling the knife out of the, drawer in the kitchen and some of those shots. And I remember watching those shots. I'm like, what is that movie? What is that? Because I had no idea, but it intrigued me because it looked good. Like those shots look amazing. Those look really interesting. So I'm like, what is this movie? And of course, found out it was Halloween. But because you're not seeing Michael Myers, you're seeing the clown hand grabbing a knife and going up the stairs with the going with the clown mask on and things like that. And I think the shot of his parents taking the mask off of him, standing in front of the house, was in Terror in the Aisles. And I had no idea it was Halloween. Like but I was like, what is this movie? And I guess I wasn't quick enough to look in the end credits to see what was credited. But
I had to pause it. I recorded that because I was first of all, Donald Pleasance I loved, because when I saw Terror in the Aisles, I saw all the Halloween movies up to that point, which was probably up to 6. And I saw Donald Pleasance and Nancy Allen, who I remember from Carrie, was a part of it as well. But when I saw all these clips, like Alone in the Dark's in there, because there's a clip from that they're going after the postman's hat or whatever. I love that scene. And I'm like, what is that movie? So I didn't know it because they didn't tell what movie it was. So I had to just write down and kind of find what I could find. And my first experience with Alien was from that. So by the way, Scream Factory has an edition of Terror in the Aisles available, but the early edition of Halloween 2 has it on there. This one?
Oh, yeah, it's on that.
Yeah, it's on that. So
yeah, I had that one.
That was a nice welcome. That was actually the only reason I bought it, because I already had my box set at the time. But we're set to go. I had to pick something up, and
he's got to do his move in again. He's the guy in the chair.
The guy in the chair. Anyway, I forgot. I was going to look it up, but what are we talking about next week? I already forgot. I
like the list of stuff we got coming up, because there was some unexpected stuff.
Okay, so The Haunting and the Innocents for next week.
Awesome. Yeah, that's cool.
Okay, and then The Lighthouse. So I was thinking, instead of I keep pushing this back, doing the 20 elevated horror, we could either do that, or we could do the 2 movies we discussed last week, which are this one, what is it called?
Delirium.
And Your Vice is a Locked Room, and only I have the key. So
you want to do that one after The Haunting and Innocence?
We can.
Or I'm cool with doing that, and The Lighthouse is kind of exciting too. So to talk about.
Well, let's do The Lighthouse after The Innocence and The Haunting, and then we'll do that way. Break it up a little bit, because
that's once a month.
Yeah, and October we're not really going to have a chance to do that, because we're going to be reviewing Halloween Ends, and I really want to delve into something that we never get to talk about. And Seth, I know, is super excited, as Universal horror films. So there's so much to cover, and and plus, in my opinion, the best time to start watching Universal horror is October, and then you roll into Hammer horror. So
growing up, that's what it was, because I was existing before the slasher stuff existed. So I remember Halloween was Frankenstein's monster, Wolfman, Mummy, Dracula.
Oh yeah.
As a kid, that was what Halloween represented. Now we go into stores and we don't see them. We see Beetlejuice and Freddy and Jason and Ghostface.
Saw, which doesn't make sense to me.
And Jigsaw or whatever.
Yeah.
And Sam and
Trick or Treat's a good Halloween movie, I think. That's one of the things. I get that October is horror month basically, but there's a lot of movies that don't really, in my opinion, fall under the umbrella of a Halloween type movie. Like Child's Play movies don't belong. That's just my neuroses or whatever. I don't know, but yeah, I know. I'm looking forward to the shows we got coming up. Looking forward. I'm gonna watch the 63 version of The Haunting and the 99 version, because I haven't watched the 99 version in a long time because it's terrible.
I think I'll skip that.
I probably should. I haven't watched it. I saw it in the theater because I liked the original.
I did too.
Yeah, so I was like, "Oh, this is going to be good."
It was Jan de Bont, wasn't it? Wasn't it Jan de Bont?
I
liked Twister and I like his cinematography, but
even some of the cast was good. Catherine Zeta-Jones, Liam Neeson,
Lily Taylor.
Yeah. So I was excited about it, and it just was a big fucking letdown. But it did make up, because I saw House on Haunted Hill in '99 also.
A whole lot better.
Yeah, so that'd be a fun one to talk about. Both of them, really. the original one and the 99 version. Because I think the 99 version of House on Haunted Hill is a little underrated also.
Yeah.
Because of, yeah. Oh, another article I can write.
And we have not, I don't think we've talked about Vincent Price.
No.
At all, which is heartbreaking because he's my favorite horror icon.
He's from my area too.
And, we talked about, earlier we were talking about the boogeyman thing. That was part of the 30s and 40s where they did just drag out those Universal monsters and sequels and sequels and sequels. And then that didn't really happen again until Jason and Freddy and Michael.
Yeah.
And in between, we had the era of Vincent Price, where I've always said that Vincent Price was the last great horror icon because Vincent Price is not tied down to a character. He is the character. He sells the movie. Like Vincent, like maybe the only iconic name he has is maybe Dr. Phibes. But out of that, it's really
Vincent we got Price. 2 movies out of that character, so
yeah. But out of that, like Vincent Price was the boogeyman as himself. I mean, what he played, he was Vincent Price. And
I mean, how much weight did he bring to Edward Scissorhands alone, being just Vincent Price, or Michael Jackson's Thriller video because of his voice,
Alice Cooper's Nightmare, and he that voice, that laugh, that presence, that stature that he had. There really hasn't been another Vincent Price. People say, "Well, Robert Englund." Like Robert, I like Robert. But Robert is and will always be Freddy Krueger. There's really not even a second.
He has that character,
thing in there.
Robert would have to be in another horror movie. You know what I'm saying? And still, he'd be a horror icon just because of Freddy. I mean, he's been in a lot of other horror projects,
and he's had a few things, but there's nothing that's that outstanding that he's done outside of Freddy. In my opinion, I love the guy. I love, but. Like the closest thing that the 2 things he's done that I liked the most outside of Freddy probably was like Leslie Vernon playing the Dr. Loomis character. I thought he was great. And I liked the movie Jack Brooks, which never gets talked about, where he plays. Have you seen Jack Brooks' Demon Slayer?
No, I've never heard of it.
If you've never seen that, that's an excellent Robert Englund movie. Like he plays kind of this doctor. Peter Cushing too. Yeah, I forgot. But Peter Cushing's also connected to Van Helsing and Dr. Frankenstein quite a bit. Same as Christopher Lee is connected to Count Dracula in a great way.
Well, Peter Cushing was amazing as Van Helsing. So.
Oh, Peter Cushing made Dr. He's the greatest Dr. Frankenstein.
Oh, absolutely, I agree. But I mean,
and he's fucking Tarkin. Yes.
Yeah. Peter Cushing was one of the best actors ever, in my opinion.
Oh yeah.
It was Seth, and we did the Hammer Frankenstein and Hammer Horror of Dracula episode a couple of months ago, and I think he mentioned Edward Van Sloan as being the better of the between him and Peter Cushing as Van Helsing. I'm like, no. Peter Cushing was just a different.
I don't think I necessarily said he was better. It's just like I also like Edward Van Sloan as much as Van Helsing as I do Peter Cushing, whereas in my mind, Peter Cushing is the definitive Victor Frankenstein.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Fine.
I do love Colin Clive's vibe, though, but yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Colin Clive gets the accolades because of one fucking line anyway. I mean, he's good. Yeah. Don't get me wrong. I like his character, but
at the same time, he doesn't get the credit, just like Dwight Fry doesn't get much credit sometimes. Dwight, like Ryan Renfield is one of the most terrifying things about Dracula. Like his performance as Renfield is incredible, really. Yeah. Like that scene where he's laughing at the bottom of the stairs on the ship is probably the scariest fucking scene in that movie.
I love that scene. Yeah.
Dwight Fry is the MVP of Dracula, of Todd Browning's Dracula.
He's the MVP of Universal Horror, if you really think.
Oh yeah.
He's all over Universal Horror.
Yeah.
Him or well, I mean, there could be a couple guys.
Bela and Boris are all over it too, but
I mean, so was Lon Chaney Jr.
and Lon.
Yeah. So, but like, oh, I can't wait to talk about Universal. It's gonna be so much fun. Yeah. Anyway. Wow, the Candyman episode, the end, turned into talking about I love it though. I like talking about whatever. So Seth, I don't know if you heard, we're doing next week
Haunting and the Innocents.
Yeah. So they're not streaming unless you want to rent them. But I think I have them both on DVD.
I think I can't remember if I have the Innocence. I know I have The Haunting.
I don't think I've seen The Innocence, so I'm blanking on what it is about. Like I saw this, I'm like, I don't know if I remember that. So I'm looking forward to watching that.
Isn't The Innocence? I've seen it. Isn't it like kind of the same story as the others, the Nicole Kidman movie?
So yeah, I'm not sure. I didn't look because I'm like I can't remember if I've seen it or not. I don't want to be spoiled. I'm gonna watch it.
Yeah.
And,
I've seen the others. I haven't seen The Innocence.
I've seen the others for sure.
I've seen The Innocence, but it's been a long, long time. But
it's
a good movie. It's one of the classics.
And I'll have to double check. I may, but I don't know if I have The Haunting.
I'll check.
It's just amazing movie.
Yeah, The Haunting.
Just the filmmaking, the cinematography, and that is incredible.
I'm checking to see if it's available on Amazon. Yeah, The Haunting on DVD is $10. Blu-ray is $12.
I'm pretty sure I did buy The Innocence on DVD though.
See, I think I have The Innocence also, but I don't. I gotta look. I gotta look at my collection.
It's got like, it's Deborah Kerr, right? Or isn't
I believe so.
I think it's like her face on the cover, like pretty big on the DVD.
I'm looking right now. Yeah.
Candyman got me.
$18 on DVD.
I go eBay.
Yeah. Or it's like $3 to rent. The only problem with eBay is it might take like 6 years to get here. I'm gonna run up to, if I don't have it, I'm gonna run up to my local vintage stock and see if I can't find me a copy of it, because they have just about anything I've looked for. But yeah, I'm looking forward to talking about some older movies, and I really had fun that last time when we talked about those last two movies, 10 Rillington Place, and we've never talked about The Omen, have we?
We didn't talk about David Warner, man. Great, yeah. Like Time After Time and Time Band, and I'm a big fan of Sam Peckinpah. So he did some stuff with him. Like The Ballad of Cable Hogue is one of my favorites.
He did the voice of Ra's al Ghul in Batman the Animated Series.
Yeah, he's Warner. Kind of just watched him in something else too.
In Mouth of Madness.
Scream 2.
Mouth of Madness. I think we talked about that. Like, I wish he was in it more. Yeah, The Turn of the Screw is what Innocence is based on, which has been told a few times on screen, I believe. The Turn of the Screw.
Yeah, there's a couple interpretations of it or whatever.
Yeah.
Did they remake The Innocence?
I think The Innocence is the definitive version of this. I think that Others is kind of based on it, or slightly.
Let me look. I'm looking at it.
There's probably been a few based on that.
It's related. It says related to The Innocence on Google. So at least.
Isn't that what the second season of Flanagan's like Haunting of Hill House?
Yeah, I believe. Yeah, it is.
Innocence.
The Bly House. Yeah, I believe it's a Turn of the Screw.
Yeah.
It doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't say it's directly.
I think Others is loosely based on it.
Just real quick, back to The Omen. We were gonna do The Omen. I watched the original movie, the remake, and I listened to the audiobook of the novelization or the novel.
Mm-hmm.
And then for some reason we just didn't do it.
I was we haven't done the Suspiria thing.
That's true too. That's something I want to dig into. Was that when I had COVID? Remember, we had to miss an episode because I had COVID.
I don't remember. There was something happening with maybe even a couple of you guys, and we didn't. I don't think it's either someone was going to miss an episode, so we just did something else. But I remember I prepped for The Omen, and we just never.
That might have been when it was just me and you doing the shows.
Yeah, if we're talking about like haunted house movies, one of my favorites and underrated is Amityville 2.
Oh my God, yes.
I love that movie.
Another underrated horror movie, yeah.
Very, very underrated movie. It's better than the first movie. It's
come on.
I like it a whole lot more than the first movie.
I like them both quite a bit, but I love the first one. It's mostly nostalgia. That was one of the first ones my mom showed me that she loved. She saw it in the theater. But yeah, the second one, The Possession, it's so creepy. Burt Young is really good as an abusive father. I don't remember who plays the priest, but yeah, I love that movie. That's another one I'd like to talk about.
The Entity. There's some.
Oh my God, The Entity is fantastic.
I
saw that this year.
I really like the haunting movies. Seth, did you say you're not into that stuff? Like you're not big. Somebody in our group's not a big haunted house guy.
Yeah, that would be me. Like I like some, and I'll watch them. I'm just not as big into them. Like you guys are big into like The Conjuring and stuff like that, and I'm like okay with it, but yeah, more of a monster guy.
Yeah, this is good too.
Yeah, The Conjuring, those are good, but yeah, and so there's something about some of these older ones, like some of the ones in the late 60s, early 70s, like what is the one? Oh God, I've got them right behind me, but like with Roddy McDowell,
Hell House, wasn't it?
Hell House, yeah, Legend of Hell House.
Hell House, yeah.
Yeah, what's that one? I'm blanking on names. I think it might be just called Ghost Story, maybe.
Oh, that one's Fred Astaire.
Yeah, with the 4 riders or whatever. And yeah, that's another good one. There's a few of them. I just got one last year when Warner was doing that sale that we all jumped on.
There was if we could find it, there was a good TV haunting movie in the 80s with Ruth Gordon from like Harold and Maude and Rosemary's Baby. It's called Don't Go to Sleep, I think. I've got it on DVD. It was a TV movie from like the early 80s. It's actually really, the early 80s TV horror movies like Dark Night of the Scarecrow, things like that are really fucking excellent. Same as the 70s with Duel and things like that. This movie is really, I'm pretty sure it's called Don't Fall Asleep or Don't Go to Sleep. And it's a haunting movie. In the vein of Poltergeist, probably was. I don't know if it was ripped off for Poltergeist or Amityville Horror. I have to pull it up, but if it's streaming somewhere that we could watch, that may be a fun one to.
House of Drip Blood. That's a good movie. I just pulled these out. The Legend of Hell House, Ghost Story, and then this one I haven't gotten a chance to watch yet though. From Beyond the Grave. Yeah. So, and then the Sentinel. If you haven't seen the Sentinel, that's a good movie.
Sentinel's really good.
Yeah.
And then that makes me think of also The Changeling of George C. Scott. Another really.
What a brilliant film! Have you seen that one, Seth?
Somebody mentioned Burnt Offerings, I think, earlier.
Yeah, Burnt Offerings. Yeah, that's 70s, isn't it?
Yeah.
What we need to talk about, and I know is not an acceptable answer, is House and House 2.
I love House 2.
I do too. I love it.
I like the first one, but like House 2 was the one I saw first, and I had so much fun with that. It's like I lumped that in with like My Science Project and a few other like just really fun, quirky.
Well, it's not time travel, but it's a dimensional portal that the Crystal Skull, and I like that. Both movies have the two buddies from Cheers, Norman.
It kind of falls into like the Frighteners type movie. Like,
I love the Frighteners.
Funny ghost characters.
We're coming up with a bunch of shows there. Frighteners is another one we should talk about. It's a really good one.
I love the Frighteners.
I do too. I haven't seen it in a while. That's a good one to show to the kids, I think.
We should do like just early Peter Jackson month. And just do like Bad Taste and Meet the Feebles and Dead Alive and
we could, because I haven't seen Meet the Feebles or Bad Taste in fucking forever. I wonder how hard they would be to find, because I don't have them. I have Dead Alive, which is damn near impossible to get.
Yeah, I've got that one.
Well, I remember a couple years ago, Peter Jackson said that he was going to HD convert all of his stuff and re-release them, and that never happened. So, because like Dead Alive, if you look it up on like eBay or even Amazon, the price is ridiculous for a Blu-ray or even the DVD, which I had 2 copies of.
It's such a cult classic.
Yeah.
It's amazing what's available and what isn't. Like there's some of the shittiest movies in the world are always there, and then you get like I'll read about like a movie that won the Oscar in like 1974 or something. Oh, that was Godfather, but I'll read about a movie that won the fucking Oscar or was nominated for Best Picture, and it doesn't have a DVD or it doesn't have a release. Like, how does this piece of shit over here have like a 4K Blu-ray, and this movie that won a goddamn Oscar or a Palme d'Or or something doesn't have one? It doesn't make any sense to me.
That's not too bad. $29, $23.
Yeah, that ain't bad.
Yeah. Yeah, I know what you mean. There's a lot of movies that I want to watch that are not available just at all. There's a lot of stuff that we watched as kids. Like there was a movie, not horror, but it was had Brian Austin Green in it, and there were surfers or something. I can't remember what it was, but I couldn't find it anywhere. I had to watch it on YouTube, really low quality, All American Summer or something like that.
I've been watching a lot of classic films, going through like the lists online, like BFI's 100 greatest films of all time or Criterion, and these movies that are considered by the film world as some of the best ever made, and they're not streaming anywhere. Like no streaming service has it. And like, how is that even possible? And like, there's so much out there. And
you know what I found the other day? I use Vudu quite a bit. We've got a big collection on Vudu, and they every now and again, like especially through the summer, they do sales like $4.99 for this movie, $4.99 for that movie. I got 1932 Scarface for $5 on there because I didn't have it and I can't find it physically. And I'm a big, you guys probably don't know this, I love Cary Grant.
I love Cary's awesome.
Arsenic and Old Lace for $5. So I'm like, holy shit.
Have you ever
seen that?
Yeah.
Oh, I love that movie. Yeah. So I was able to get those for $5 streaming because
even bad Cary Grant movies are great because Cary Grant's great.
Oh, Cary Grant, yeah. Everything.
He's
one of my favorite actors of all time. And when I found out, hey Scott, when I found out that Christopher Reeve watched Bringing Up Baby to influence his Clark Kent, I was like, holy shit, that's fucking dead on, because Bringing Up Baby, and I'm like, why didn't Cary Grant play Superman at some point, because he could have done it.
He would have been perfect. I don't know if people would take him seriously, but yeah, he'd have been perfect, Clark.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
he was just like he was like this extremely handsome guy, but he could play the goofiest guy. He could play the goofball. He could play it all. He could play sinister like he did in Hitchcock's movies. He could play just smooth as shit, like His Girl Friday, and he could play these really comedic, funny, bumbling morons or North
Professors or
North by Northwest, where he's just a man out of his element kind of thing, where he's just overwhelmed in this crazy situation. So, Cary Grant is a lot of those guys. Jimmy Stewart, some people don't take him, but Jimmy was fucking phenomenal. Henry Fonda, like anytime these guys are in a movie, even if the movie isn't a great movie, they're great in it. They elevate it. So yeah, like I really love. I'm almost in a situation where I'm not even excited about modern cinema anymore. Like I really am absorbing classics more than anything. Where I'm just really excited. I've watched like almost 200 movies from the silent era to the 70s in the last 5 months. It's just,
damn, dude.
I can't get enough.
I see that you're updating your profile picture to older films, and that's why I'm kind of like you brought us The Innocents and The Haunting a while back to do. So I'm glad we're getting a chance to do that. If we all are able to watch them. I mean, we can rent them if anything, right, Seth? Seth, are you not into the older movie? I know because you do like, Universal horror, black and whites and stuff. I mean, is there anything that, like in the later decades that you're a fan of? I know I just did my 60s list, and I know The Innocents is not on there. The Haunted.
The only thing that I mean, you just asked Seth, sorry. But the thing that I missed really is the Hammer Atomic Age stuff. That's the stuff I'm not, and I don't know. Like I
love Hammer. The Atomic Age stuff I wasn't into.
Yeah, I think I could get into Hammer more. I've seen a lot of Hammer. but I don't know a lot of it because they put so much stuff out.
Well, a lot of it's out now thanks to Scream Factory, but part of the problem with Hammer is it's not streaming anywhere. So I don't think. By the way, here's my 60s list. I don't know if you guys saw this or not. My top 10. This is my personal favorites. Wait Until Dark. Got some Hammer. Black Sunday. You ever seen The Oblong Box?
Yeah.
Good movie. The Haunting. The Devil Rides Out. That's a Hammer movie. City. Have you guys seen City of the Dead?
I don't think I've seen that one.
Oh my God. It's Christopher Lee's in it. There's a line from one of Rob Zombie's songs or White Zombie's songs that came straight from this movie. Superstition, Fear, and Jealousy. That's Christopher Lee from this movie. Night of the Living Dead, Psycho, and Rosemary's Baby. Yeah. But yeah, I'm really enjoying doing these lists, by the way.
I'll let Seth answer the question that you asked him that I answered.
Right, Seth, I'll answer for you.
Don't worry, Seth, I'll tell you. Seth said he likes the monsters.
Right. Well, and I do like a lot of stuff I've seen, especially of like Hammer, stuff like that. But admittedly, there's a lot from the 60s and 70s that I just have not seen. And I'm not opposed to watching these movies at all, as long as they're available to me. And, depending on how much they would cost, I'm not opposed to viewing these stuff. I mean, I loved watching 10 Rillington Lane last week and even Assignment Terror. I enjoy discovering these movies for the first time. And just admittedly, there's a lot I haven't seen,
That's one of the great things about Nate is you can really get into like a deep dive. Like, I need to do the 40s list still. And I'm like, I only have 9. Nate's like, well, here's 25 that you could check out for the 1940s. And I'm like, okay, there we go.
Yeah. I want to watch more of those, but yeah, like the 60s we talked about, like I want to do Peeping Tom and I want to do Targets and The Bad Seed and there's a lot of great fucking horror movies that
that's why those are on my 60s list, because there's a lot I haven't seen still.
Or Spider Baby was such a huge influence on House of Thousand Corpses. And
that's a real movie?
Spider Baby, great.
I've never heard of that
Sid
one.
Haig and
really.
It's like this and Lon Chaney Jr. is the star of it, and Lon Chaney's like kind of like the Captain Spaulding character. Like he's the head of the family, he's the dad. He's got 2 crazy daughters. One of them's like totally baby Firefly, crazy shit, and then Sid Haig's the son, who's kind of wacky too, and it's just really campy. I mean, so much of House of Thousand Corpses is Spider Baby meets Old Dark House meets Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, or just
shit. That's on Tubi.
Spider Baby's fun.
You've seen Spider Baby?
Yeah, I think I had the DVD or Blu-ray. But that's a fun movie, guys. I know you guys would enjoy it because it's a fun movie. It's made by the guy who made Coffee and all the Pam Grier blaxploitation, women in cages shit and all that. So
it's on Tubi. I'll give it a shot.
Kind of early exploitation film.
You got to take advantage of Tubi. Tubi's got a lot of stuff on there. If you haven't, you just got to sit through commercials, which we did as kids, so shouldn't be a problem. All right. Elle, is there anything else you guys want to talk about before we wrap up our 2-hour episode?
It's nice not to have to rush to work.
Yeah. It's nice to just rap about films, I mean, we talked about Candyman and how much we love the movie, and then we got to talk about all this other stuff. And like, I really, this year especially, I've been like delving into more older films because of, last year I put together my list, which influenced you to find out that you've watched 7,000 movies or something like that. But
almost.
It's just I see the decades that I've neglected, and I've been trying to see more from those decades. I got 3 movies from 1983 I want to watch before I do my top 10 from 83. So
yeah, because I think when I did my list, I think between like 1904 to like 1970, I've watched about 1,500 movies in that time frame, and then the other 5,000 for 70 to now, so there's so much there, and there's so much that I've missed. And the thing is, like, story was so important in that, especially there's just so much good, and especially even the silent era. I've seen some movies that blew me. Like The Passion of Joan of Arc just fucking floored me. And then the Sunrise. I talked about this the other day. I just got the Blu-ray special edition. It's out. Sunrise, Marnow's movie. Everybody talks about Nosferatu, but Sunrise is, to me, the best thing I've seen him do, and it is like considered one of the greatest films ever made. It's like Janet Gaynor. She won the first Oscar for best female actress in that movie, and the cinematography. 27. So it was right before the talkies started to come in. It was kind of like the big, and it is an incredible movie. It's got this really amazing story, and it's I started watching Japanese films, Ozu, and more. I've watched every Kurosawa film so far, and I'd only seen the samurai stuff, and I started watching everything else he made, and good God, he's like all this hype about this man is like there, like he's now one of my top 10 filmmakers. Like I'm watching all his film, like, this guy, it was fucking incredible, and just getting into the Godard and all the Italian stuff and French stuff and the German stuff, and I mean I've watched foreign films. I've been watching foreign films since the 90s, but now I'm really like almost the bulk of what I've been watching in the last 4 or 5 months has been foreign cinema, and just the level of stories that when people talk about the greatest movies, like like no. They have those reputations for a reason, and like all those guys that we loved in the 70s, the Scorseses and the De Palmas, they were so influenced by these people. Craven, Carpenter. I mean, Carpenter's a big Hawks fan, so watch all the Hawks movies. Watch all of John Ford's movies. Watch all of, because that's who informed these guys. It's who molded them, and so find your heroes' influences, and a lot of those guys were influenced by art house cinema and what they were seeing in the 60s and what they were seeing in film school. And they were seeing stuff like Sunrise and Passion, and then The Bicycle Thieves and 400 Blows and all that. So they're, something like Lies Without a Face made an impact on these guys. Like the Bergman films. I mean, they influenced so much of what we worship of the 70s. Like we wouldn't have the 70s films that we had if it hadn't been for these films that those guys were learning and stealing from. People talk about Tarantino stealing. Like Scorsese's always saying, "Yeah, I took this from this, and I took this from that, and I took this from this." And they all do it. Everybody steals. Like I was watching a conversation with Sofia Coppola and Paul Schrader, and he said, it's all artists steal, just don't steal from the same store,
right?
So you'll get caught. And Coppola, Sophia said, "Yeah, my dad told me if you're going to steal from the best." So, like, I just watched, Kurosawa. I watched the Bad Sleep Well, which is his Hamlet movie, and the opening 20 minutes of the Bad Sleep Well is a wedding, but there's this whole thing going on, and you watch that, and you see the opening 20 minutes of The Godfather, and Coppola took it straight from Kurosawa. And it's almost to the press is there and all the chaos is going on and the law. It's all this stuff going on outside of the wedding. It's tension and intrigue and
wow. I could watch that. That's Godfather's my favorite movie of all time.
Yeah, I mean it's different, but you could see that's where Coppola got it from, like how he handled that Godfather wedding.
That's awesome.
Looking at Kurosawa, yeah.
That is really cool. We've got one person hanging with us.
Fuck this shit.
I think it's Scott.
Scott's a film guy too. Scott's got a wide knowledge of film.
I watched Carnival of Souls last year. I couldn't get into it. Wasn't one of my favorites. It was on HBO Max, I believe. Anyway, let's wrap this bad boy up so I can put my kids to bed. Good show, man. I had fun talking with you guys tonight. Seth, you got any final words? Remember you stepped down from Evil Dies Tonight, so
right. I'm rethinking the whole situation there.
I bet you are.
I guess final thoughts on the entire episode. I don't care about the I don't care for the idea of Halloween Ends going to streaming and theaters. I'm looking forward to Hellraiser. It's great that Demons 2, Evil Dead Rise is getting a theatrical release.
Rick, yeah.
Candyman's, it's a fantastic horror movie. It doesn't deserve to be lumped in with slasher, and it's in some ways it's kind of better than slashers. I don't want to sound blasphemous there, but there's a lot more going on with it. There's a lot
slashers
more.
Know what they are.
Right, exactly.
There's a junk food.
Yes.
Exactly, and everyone who makes them knows that. Whereas Candyman is definitely just a really well crafted movie, and I just want to remind you guys, don't forget to watch the 1931 Dracula with the Philip Glass score, because it's great. Yeah,
got mine right here.
Yeah.
Nate, what about you? Some final thoughts on tonight's episode?
Yeah, I kind of said something I never thought I'd say, which is Scream is dated where Candyman is timeless. Like, it really kind of is a better movie.
Yeah.
Because of that element of it, which I still love Scream. Scream was like the injection I needed for horror in a time where I kind of drifted away from horror.
Yeah.
The more and more I watch this movie, the more and more I think it deserves as much attention as any of the 80s equivalent of the movies that dominate discussion and the spotlight in this community. If people are talking about Friday the 13th 5 all day long, they should be talking about Candyman as well all day long. So I'm sorry I keep taking hits at Friday the 13th because they're just not
big
same level.
I was about to support 5.
I like it, but it's like these movies are not, there's better stuff. You can't tell me that's great. Nope, isn't. I'm sorry.
Wait, you don't like Friday the 13th?
No,
okay.
No, I like
haven't put her up yet.
But I know what they are. They're junk food. They're fast food.
Yeah,
they're McDonald's. And sometimes I want, a nice steak. And and that's what Candyman is. It's a nice steak.
Yes, it is. It is. Medium well. That's how I like them.
I give the Big Mac pause, and that's the Big Mac.
No, man, I don't think Friday the 13th is a Big Mac. I think that's a double cheeseburger.
It's a double cheeseburger. It's a $1 menu. It's a chicken nugget.
Chicken nugget, yeah. Freddy's a Big Mac.
It's the ice cream machine that's never on.
No, machine's broke. That means you don't want to clean it. Bitch.
You don't want to clean it.
Yeah.
It's in a lawsuit right now. So
right. Man. Jared missed a fun episode. Yeah. Anyway, anything else, Nate, before I
no, I'm glad Seth stayed with us tonight. Had a fun time. We laughed.
Me too.
We're the medicine for. I've had a rough week. So
I've had a rough 3 weeks.
Well, that too, yeah.
Yeah, I got the axe from a girl, so that's over now. It's been rough, but I'm feeling better. Every time I get to talk to you fellas, it always makes me feel better. Love talking horror, love watching horror. The one thing I like about you guys especially is you all, even Keith, I discover more horror talking to you guys, even just film in general, when we talk in our chat or talk on the show, than I would just trying to do it on my own. That's one of the things I'm thankful for about the show and about our chat is, discovering all these great movies. Never would have seen 10 Rillington Lane if Nate wouldn't have brought that up, and there's countless movies that I've never seen. The movie you sent me, Seth, and I've still never seen Assault on Precinct 13. I'll watch it.
Well, I'm on the show. I just had a conversation yesterday about podcasts, and I had been guests on so many podcasts.
Yeah.
Especially through the Scream Factory years and the Confession of Fred Krueger years and all that. I was invited. And so many of them are just people who generally, they're the junk food fan. They don't really know a lot. They don't put a lot of thought into it. It's a lot of it sucks, it's stupid.
That's your basic horror fan, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's the guys you run into on fucking. It's like, nope, don't want to watch it. Not interested. This sucks. And it's worst movie I ever saw. I can't get that time back from my life. And it was always an awkward situation because I just sit there and watch them all just bleh, 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 suck, bleh. And then they come in the meeting. What do you think, Nate? And I'm like, well, actually, and I would just like throw my facts and my shit, my knowledge, and then they'd be like, yeah. And it was like I was the contrarian to everything because they were just shitting on everything, and I was fair, and I was like actually knew what the fuck I was talking about, and it was like. Because I made films, I know how fucking hard it is. I know what it takes. I know, and like I said last week, it's hard to get something that does live on. I took shots at Friday 13th, but goddamn it, Friday 13th, there's good there because it is always there. It's evergreen. Yeah. It's always going to be popular. It's always going to live on because it is good stuff. Mm-hmm. Like I take shots at it, but it is good. It's fun. It's just great stuff. Tastes good. It's comfort food. It's Doritos, whatever. It's
double cheeseburger and fries.
We want that. We need that. Just like like Robert Englund said, you need the high and the low brow. That's what Wes Craven got into his head because Robert was a pretentious Shakespearean theater dude and looked down on horror. And then it was like, oh, we need Friday Night on Elm Street. We need just stuff too. It's just support. Yeah. So. But with you guys know what you're talking about. You have an appreciation. You're not just. I mean, sometimes you do. Like, I don't like it. I'm not a fan, and that's fair. But you're not like, it's shit. It sucks, and it's the worst movie I ever saw, and I want my money back. And there's I always feel that there's so many podcasts, and like you said, you discover movies. I think that's what our mission should be is to.
So why I created the Horror Syndicate, actually.
Yeah, it's like to keep, like I said, like the whole thing of Candyman, keep the story going, keep things living, and that's what do they call it? The I don't know. You keep things alive and you keep things going. And I hope when people watch our show that they're learning something or hearing something for the first time that they didn't know. And it excites them about it, or they hear about a thing they haven't seen and they go out and search it for it. That's when I make my lists, it could come off as, oh, is he full of himself? He's always talking about what his top favorite this is. It's not. It's like, I love these. And if you haven't seen them, I'm trying to say, hey, go check it out. Yeah. That's what, instead of saying, what, you haven't seen this? What are you, a fucking dipshit? Like, what are you? You're not a real fan if you haven't. No, I'm like, no, go see this. This is good. If you haven't seen it, go see it. Not shame on you for not seeing it. You're not a real horror fan. Give me your card. It's that there's that divide of horror fans who are like want to beat you up because you don't know everything or haven't seen everything, and there's other people's like, dude, go see this. This is exciting. This is awesome. You like that movie? You should see this, 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 and this. And that's how we should be. We should. Well, that's
what I feel like. That's what we are. We're not that way.
Yeah, it's like I want to encourage younger fans and new fans instead of saying, well, you're not really a Metallica fan because you watch Stranger Things and suddenly like Master of Puppets. No, you like Master of Puppets? Then go get this album and go listen to this song and go listen. Not like, oh, fuck you, you're not a real fan. I was there in 1983 and I saw them and kill them all tour. And
here's a really good example of what we've done. Look at Keith.
Oh yeah.
I mean, Keith, when he started bumming around the Horror Syndicate, I think he was 22, so he's 24 now, somewhere around there. And look how deep his film knowledge has become just by being on the show, talking to us. I mean, he's like your son, Nate. It's annoying.
Yeah, and we tease him, but at the same time, it's out of an affection. It's not.
He's like the kid brother, though.
We're not making fun of him. We're like, because we know he's hungry for it. Mm-hmm. He gets all excited about it. We see his enthusiasm of this. This kid, wants to see it all. He wants to check it out. He's so curious, and he just buys stuff just because he's got that hunger that I recognized in myself. Like when I became a movie fanatic, I mean, I always loved movies, but when I got to the college age, I just couldn't get enough of film. And I've been that way ever since, where I want to see as much good as I possibly can. Mm-hmm. And that's what, like I talked about, like I'm watching all these old films. It's like, I don't know how long I have. And there's so many films over the last 100 years that I have not seen. And I won't get to see everything. It is impossible. I won't be able to read every book. I won't be able to watch every show. I won't be able to play every video game or whatever, but if I'm going to seek out the best of the best and spend my time watching that. And we'll watch Assignment Terror every once in a while. So
well, we gotta talk about the turds once in a while. You know? Like,
we need. I don't know. Although that's not junk food. That's like the gum on the sidewalk.
Yeah, that's those are not packing peanuts, but the circus peanuts.
Yeah,
those are gross.
The black licorice of
yeah, I can't.
But no, yes, sir. Good trust.
I went back and rewatched that scene after the show, just so you know. I was gonna try to make I want to make an intro for the show with scenes and stuff, so I'm gonna try to get that in there if I can.
Get dressed.
Get dressed.
Get dressed. It's time for the show.
Yeah, I mean, I've said it before, but I'm gonna say it again. The whole reason I started the Horror Syndicate, to get back to what you were saying a second ago, is because I started delving into films I never saw. I thought I was I thought I had the biggest horror knowledge, and then I got into this horror group, and I was like, holy shit, I don't know anything. And I started getting into more and more, and then I met Jared, and Jared started suggesting things to me, and Brian Enright, and all with Mike Lombardo. And the thing I want with the Horror Syndicate is to inform people of what else is out there that's not just, I mean, we'll talk about Halloween and we'll talk about Elm Street and Jason and all this different stuff, but I want I have over 850 horror movies in my collection alone. You know,
yeah.
That's insane in my opinion. But like, there's so much out there that's good, and a movie like Candyman should be talked about more. You know, a movie like 10 Rillington Place that's hardly anybody knows about. You know, I mean, we didn't get much viewers last week, but hopefully the ones that we did get went out and checked it out on Prime, because
they discovered a new movie like we did, and that's really what it's about. It's keeping shit relevant and in the air.
Yeah,
talked about, and that's how it. And you know, people. I had a discussion. This guy just would not get on my side on this, and he was just talking about how the 80s and 70s was the best time of filmmaking. I'm like, I can't say that, because there's always been good and there's always been bad. Every decade has about 20 really great horror films. And then maybe
that's a pure nostalgia statement, though.
Yeah, and maybe 100 really good, but there's always been shitty films and shitty filmmakers and great filmmakers and great films, just like there are today. Like Paul Schrader said it best. He goes, people romanticize what we did in the 70s, but there's just as many good filmmakers today as there were in the 70s. It's just people have it in their head that was the best, because that's just how nostalgia works. The burgers tasted better and the Coke tasted better, and because cocaine was better back then. You know, everything was better. The sex was better. You know, it's like that. We hang on, and you know, my dad and I were talking about this because you know he just lost his mother. I just lost my grandmother, and we were talking about time and how, and you know, my daughter's a teenager, and when we were talking about our lives, you know, we hang so much on our youth, but it's such a blip on our life. Like it's so fast. It's like 10 years of real awareness, if anything. Because in the first 5 years, you don't remember any fucking thing really. So you get that 5 to 15, which is a lot of we hold on to that time so much, but it's 10 years. 10 years of shit. And when you get past your teens, it's so small. But so people hang on so much to that. And it's weird that our childhoods are that held on to sometimes. And maybe people are just kind of, I know a lot of it is coping with adulthood and the stresses that come with it. You want that simpler time when you weren't stressed out and you didn't worry about shit. You were just thinking about Pee Wee Herman or G.I. Joes or whatever. But, you know,
Yo Joe.
You know, but it really is like, to be that blind to say, oh, nothing today is good, and no artist could be as good as, you know, this guy was in 1973. You know, no artist today could make what this artist did in 1982. It's stupid. Like there's always been great artists through every generation. And he said, well, how come there ain't no classics? And like, because it hasn't gone. It takes time. I brought up a Sidney Lumet said when Ethan Hawke was talking about when he made The Devil, Before the Devil Knows You're Dead with Philip Seymour Hoffman, and Sidney Lumet directed it. Of course, Sidney Lumet made some of the films of all time, 12 Angry Men and Dog Day Afternoon and Network and all that. And so he said when Ethan and Philip were doing that movie, they went to Sydney and said, "Is this movie going to look like Dog Day Afternoon? Is it going to look like Serpico? Is it going to?" They wanted it to look like that, and he said, "I get it, guys. You want it to look classic." And they said, "Yes." And he said, "Give it 20 years." And that's what he told them. And that's the truth. Like you just don't deliver classics. They happen. Just like The Thing was dead on arrival. It is now considered one of the greatest fucking horror movies ever made. It took time for people to think that. Fred Decker posted calling Monster Squad the bomb that will not die. Like, it's a classic, so many people, but it is a dead movie in 1987. Even to the director and the actors who were in it had no fucking.
You got to give it time to breathe. I mean, like, there's a movie's not a classic right out of the fucking gate. I mean, people can call things instant classics, but that's still, you know. It was
like one guy said once, "I feel bad for kids today. They don't have the movies like Back to the Future and Star Wars and all that we had." I'm like, dude, Lord of the fucking Rings, Harry Potter, the Marvel movies, the DC movies, like they don't have Jurassic Park. Somebody said there's no classics from the 90s. No one's nostalgic for 90s movies. Like Jurassic Park didn't make an impact on kids. Terminator 2 didn't make a fucking impact on anybody.
Oh God. I'll never forget watching that the first time.
It's this stupidity that comes out of people's mouths sometimes when they talk about their nostalgia.
Stupidity league.
It's like it's like, oh, this is there's nothing as good compares, and it's like, no, you're not paying attention, or you're not considering that every day a kid is discovering a classic that came out today. Our kids have the, because I remember I was having a top, I counted down the top 100, and I had a guy who was 10 years younger than me do his top 100. And he was naming all of these kind of 90s movies, comedies, little B movies that I saw and enjoyed, but didn't hold with nostalgia because I was, in my late 20s at the time. He was in his teens. And he's like, "These are my favorite movies ever." And I'm like, "Really?" Like, but at the same time, like, well, that's.
Oh no, did he freeze right in the middle of the point?
People, yeah, I think so.
Oh, that sucks. I wanted to hear what he was going to say. Yeah.
Oh.
You froze right in the middle of that point.
Okay. Well, I was saying, like, he took these little forgotten little movies from the 90s that were like, if you were a cinephile or a kid, when you watch everything because you have all that time and you got cable or whatever. And like, well, that's what a lot of those 80s movies like Tough Turf and Kid Co. and all these movies that no one remembers that I saw, Chris Tansky from Fright Rags talking about Cloak and Dagger with Dabney Coleman, and I remember watching that movie a lot, and that's a forgotten movie. Remo Williams, when Fred Ward died, I brought up Remo Williams. No one remembers it, but that's like a movie I watched religiously. Well, that's how it is every decade, because not every movie in the 80s was great. A lot of those movies that I love are not good movies.
Yeah. I watched One Crazy Summer the other day.
I love One Crazy Summer.
I do too, but I was watching, I'm like, boy, this is dated. Like, this is so dated.
But that's how it works. And it's like, it's just to not recognize that there is always quality and there is always connection happening with art, no matter what, but it's real easy to fall into that cliche old man. It's not at the good old days when I walked in the snow, and it's to try to stay as youthful as you can and try to be appreciative and recognize that it wasn't all perfect then, to think that way is just the same as to Make America Great Again thought. Great again for what? You? Yeah. So it's the same way. Like, there's kids who are growing up with movies that they adore and cherish that molded them as much as Star Wars molded me. I mean, kids get Star Wars now. Kids get G.I. Joe now. Kids get Transformers now. It may not be your Transformers, it may not be your Ninja Turtles, but it's still there and it's still making an impression.
That's one of the things I've been trying to pride myself on with my kids, is introducing them to older movies, music especially. But like Reynolds, over the summer, he watched Tombstone and absolutely fell in love with it. That's like one of his favorite movies now. I mean, that's a classic, one of the best Westerns, obviously. But even to go a step further, You know what one of his favorite characters of all time period is now in any movie? Tuco from Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. He sat there and watched that movie with me. You know what I'm saying? Like that's I think, you know, he's got his stuff now, his Spider-Man and all the stuff that we still watch anyway, the Star Wars. But you know, my kids show a deep interest in this older stuff than some of these classics, and I think that's something that others should give a chance. They see something, oh, this was the 1967. No.
How can you not respond to Tuco? Like,
yeah, I know.
And the thing is, and again, if you like Tuco, you know, there's characters in Kurosawa's films like the Hidden Fortress. I mean, you watch those two guys; they are R2D2 and C3PO. That's where they came from, and you watch it, and that's the characterizations that those are. And a character like Tuco is kind of, you see those characters in Kurosawa films, and Kurosawa was inspired by fucking Dostoevsky and Shakespeare. Like half the shit he did were based on old books and old plays and old novels that he just fashioned to Japan, either modern day or feudal Japan. And great stories always work, and great characters always live on. And that's why, you know, this whole fight against remakes and retellings, it's like, it's going to happen. It's always happened. And there's still people, you know, you may say John Carpenter's The Thing is the greatest, but there's still people who say, no, Howard Hawks is the best. That's the best one. And they're not wrong, because that was when they grew up. That's what they saw first, or that's what they knew. And to them, that is important to them. Yeah. And better to them. Just like, so when you sit there and say, oh, this stuff today is all shit. It's like, it's impossible to believe that every piece of artwork made in the last 20 years, because it wasn't made when you were 5, is shit. There's so many good people, good talented people out there. Yes, Jordan Peele is the modern day equivalent of John Carpenter. He's made 3 fucking great movies. I don't give a fuck what anybody says. Just like Ari Aster's made 2 great fucking horror movies. Mm-hmm. Robert Eggers made 3 great films. Don't say that they're not even in the same neighborhood as Wes Craven, or because Wes Craven had shitty movies, and Romero had shitty movies, and like they've all had shitty movies. God. I mean, I know Seth loves John Carpenter, but you know, Ghost of Mars is no fucking Get Out. Okay, it's not. You know, so you know, it's just, it's funny. And they just hold that 80s nostalgia badge, and I get it, because I love that era too. I love those movies, but I have to be realistic and say, hey, yeah. Well, they were bad. Some of them were bad.
They were bad, yeah. But for us, you know, we grew up in that time frame, so that, like, the 80s movies are almost what made us into who we are, what we appreciate. I mean, I think anyway, because that's like, I just was a sponge into the 80s, into the 90s, you know, with a lot of these movies and a lot of these cartoons and TV shows and whatever else, you know.
And I think, again, it goes down to the 80s, maybe more than any decade, is the decade where we watched stuff repetitively for the first time in history, because we had the VHS boom and cable TV, and kids were watching on HBO the same 5 movies for a month, over and over and over and over and over. I had to watch it over and over. Now kids don't do that. There's so much streaming. There's so many options. They don't just sit with one movie or whatever. And you know, in the 70s, you know, it was a movie of the week, or you went to the theater to see a movie. It just wasn't available to watch again and again and again. You'd have to go to the theater 20 times to see Star Wars. You couldn't see it at home 20 times. So we grew up in that era where watching movies over and over and over, and when you do that, they just become like your best friends. They become very intimate things that you're attached to, where it's not just a movie, it's a memory, it's an old friend, it's a warm blanket, it's the thing that makes you feel comfortable and safe. And I think that's all about what the 80s is still so much a part of our community and our consciousness and our conversations, because of that era. And even the kids in the 90s who were watching their dad or their big brother's VHS tapes and things like that, it still was in the 90s as well. But it's going to be interesting to see how kids are, even though I said they do have classics, how kids are 20 years from now, looking back, because some of the stuff is so recyclable or one time and I'm done kind of thing, because there's so many options. Like I said, you go to the video store, you got 3 movie rentals, and that's what you watched all weekend because that's what you had. And you didn't just like, what's this on Netflix? 10 minutes, boring. What's on? Let's go watch some YouTube videos. And it's like that seems to be my living room almost every night is just YouTube videos. And let's watch a movie. You watch it. Everybody's looking at their phone. All right, stop it and watch a YouTube video, I guess.
Oh, I have that rule. If we're going to do a movie night, which we do, phones down.
Yeah. I need to do that. I don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah, no, I'll take them away from my kids, man. Phones down. You're watching this movie. You want to watch a movie? We're watching it. Like when Cobra Kai, that's a different situation. Season 5 comes out. They're not going to be looking at their phones because that's our show that we watch together, But yeah, like that's one of the things. Like, man, when I watch a movie, like I watched that what was it called, Seth? The fucking new Paranormal Activity last night. I put my phone down,
next to Ken,
watched the whole thing. Yeah, next to Ken, yeah. And that's it. If I'm watching something new, my phone's going down.
Seth's name here.
Yeah.
Okay, that's terrible. Jason takes me ahead and rules. And there's people that believe that.
One of these days, we're going to have to do that 20 elevated horror thing because I'm curious to see where.
And I get that. Like when you call it that, people just feel like they're insulted. They're being talked down to, and in some ways, I guess it is. But
well, Scream's the one that Scream 5 gave us the title of that.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for that movie, I wouldn't have never called it elevated horror because somebody was calling it post horror or something like that a couple years ago.
Yeah.
No, we've got a lot of shows lined up as it is. So.
Well, Bernard Rose, in an article I read earlier, was talking about that. He said, like, a lot of horror is talked as trash because a lot of it is. A lot of it sucks. He said, but some of our best horror films were made by our best filmmakers like Steven Spielberg and Stanley Kubrick and De Palma and all that. So, we don't see that as often, but guys like Peele and Astor and Kent and a few others are the equivalent of that. These people will go on to make other films outside the genre that will win Oscars. They have that talent and that capability. I fully believe that Eggers is going to get an Oscar one day, or a Palme d'Or or something. He's going to. Jordan Peele could. He already has an Oscar. Forget out. So, there are people who are making serious films, and for some reason, I guess the junk food horror fan just wants to reject that and want to say, he's no John Carpenter, he's no Wes Craven, he's no George Romero. And it's like they totally are. They're just the guys of today.
Generation, Yeah.
James Wan has 3 fucking huge franchises under his belt from the horror genre. How many horror directors have that same brag?
Yeah, that's another whole nother conversation to get into. Some of these current horror directors and how great they actually are, that they're underappreciated, like James Wan. I mean, look what he has under his belt as far as just horror alone goes. We saw Insidious, The Conjuring, Malignant. I mean, he's done some great stuff. I mean, Malignant's not great, but I liked it. And the Conjuring movies are wildly popular.
Somehow the only one.
Saw movies. So
seems like the only one that gets a pass or a thumbs up is Flanagan. And Flanagan's great. Maybe it's because he's not as showy or talked about as much. He's kind of a workhorse. He just keeps pumping that shit out. That guy just produces so much. It's amazing. All these shows and these movies.
Yeah, I still need to watch one of the shows, the latest one about the church. I can't think what it's called. But Nate, you need to do a list for me.
Elevated horror.
No, I want to know your top 10 horror, like, of the new batch of film directors.
Horror directors.
Yeah, okay. We're talking about Ari Aster's, the James Wan's, Flanagan's.
They're obvious.
If you want to, you can.
You both. Again, people believe that.
I'm just trolling with my name, like as you guys are talking.
Dude, that is hilarious though. That one, I almost passed out from Jesus Christ. All right, let's end this. Good talk, man.
Almost a 3-hour show.
Yeah, I got to get my daughter to bed by 9:30. So, check us out next week because we're talking about The Haunting from 1963 and The Innocents from 1961. So watch those beforehand, and subscribe on YouTube, all that stuff, and watch Candy. I'm gonna watch that Dracula, I think, tonight after I get off of here. So I'm looking forward to that. I guess I'll watch the newer version. It's on here for sure, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
It pretty much is the only version of it I watch now.
Come on in.
Okay.
Come on in. Come here, Lily.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's in. I don't remember if it's in the setup or if it's in the special features. There's a copy of Dracula I had where it was in special features instead of setup, but you could change the. It's on the disc with Dracula.
Oh, the first disc.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I think I'm gonna watch that, and if I have time, I might watch Evil Dead 2013 because I'm in the mood. So, anyway, any last words before we go, guys?
There's a classic released today.
What's that?
I don't know, but we'll find out in 20 years.
Oh. Yeah. Prey will be a classic, and
everything is discovered. You discovered it one day. They'll discover it one day. Your son discovered Tuco. I wasn't around in 1966 to discover Tuco on his introduction.
I didn't see that till I was in my 20s. So
yeah. But it didn't make it any less good in classic. And
no, it was amazing when I saw it in 2003, I think. So, but anyway, guys, great show, great fun. I love being able to just rap with you guys. It's so much fun. We'll do it again next week, next Wednesday, 7:35 on the East Coast. Down where I live, it's 6:35. If you're on the West Coast watching, let us know because I have no idea if we have any followers on the West Coast. Anyway, everyone have a good night. Watch some horror this weekend. Have a good time.